Flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sunshine Law Statement. All requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been met for this meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Oradell. Notice of this meeting was filed with the record and town news and all persons requesting such notice. Mrs. Norian, would you read the mission statement?
Certainly. The Oradell Public School District is dedicated to the ongoing pursuit of educational excellence through comprehensive, innovative curriculum and instruction. The district is committed to providing opportunities for social, emotional, and academic discovery to foster curiosity, courage, and character. Our goal is to prepare our students to become lifelong learners who are self-directed, resilient, productive, responsible citizens.
Thank you. Roll call.
Ms. Acosta, Mrs. Negum,
Here.
Mr. Griffin,
Here.
Mrs. Norian,
Here.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Here.
Mrs. Walker, Mr. Walsh,
Here.
Mr. Darian, Mrs. Nichols.
Here. Open to the public at this time for agenda items only. Okay, not seeing any, we'll move forward. This is always one of our, as a board, our saddest nights. It's also one of our loveliest evenings to hear what everyone has to say, but we're always sad on this night. So we have two of our favorite staff members retiring, and we want to honor them this evening. So I'm going to go in order of years of service. So first, I would like to call up Mr. Terrence McGill. We just have a resolution we would like to read. Whereas Terrence McGill has tendered his resignation as a teacher in the Oradell Public School District to become effective November 1st, 2022, after over 29 years of dedicated and faithful service to the Oradell Public School District. And whereas during his many years in our school system, he has imparted his knowledge and understanding of the educational needs of the students of Oradell Public School, and whereas he has influenced the lives of many children and has earned the love and respect of his students, colleagues, and the Oradell community, and whereas he has given unselfishly of his time and effort in the interest and welfare of the children of our school district, now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Oradell Board of Education hereby recognizes Mr. McGill's contribution to the district and expresses its appreciation of his dedicated service and directs that this resolution be included in the minutes of the board and that a copy be presented to Mr. Terrence McGill as a token of his esteem, dated the 27th of October, 2022. So I'm going to open up the floor, I guess, first to the board, if anyone would like to say anything. And I think our admin team also, right? So also our admin team, if anyone of our admin team wants to speak.
So my first full day here at OPS, before anyone came into school, Michael Hagopian took me on a tour of the classrooms. And I hit this classroom, and I look up, and I was like, why is there a deer head looking at me? And Michael looked at me and was like, I promise it's okay, because this teacher is really something special. And I said, with the deer head on the wall? No one complains about that? Like, the children aren't scared of it? Michael said no, and I looked around and I saw this really old, bad picture of George Washington that is now in the board office because Mr. McGill hung it in his classroom. It was a gift from the first class of Oradell Public School, and I think it's the only art that actually depicts George Washington as he really looked, which was not attractive during the war. And of course, Terry would keep that as authentic and to share with the students. I quickly learned that Terry was something special. Terry, your dedication to the students and all that you have done for nearly 30 years at OPS is remarkable. You are a teacher who brings the perfect balance of fun, interest, and structure. Not everybody can do that. You make history magic for our students. And I don't know that you know this, but my first year, you were one of the first teachers who I was like, ooh, I might be able to make it here. This guy's being pretty kind to me. He's making me laugh. He gets my sense of humor. He's got some kids that he can reach in ways that I haven't seen a lot of teachers reach. And then we had a couple of years where I was up in 6th grade a lot and really appreciated partnering with you, not only on the academics, but also reaching every single student. And that's what you have always done. It's found a way to reach everyone, whether it's through the deer head or the old documents, or by leading them on a how many mile hike up to the top of the peak at Sharp. I've been saying for a couple of months now, when Mr. McGill leaves, it's going to leave a Terry-shaped hole in the wall. Like I picture like the coyote running through the tunnel and you as you run out on Monday, running through and leaving like that Terry shape. And I can't believe that you and I have found so much in common, that I will now be able to work with you as not just a colleague and not just admin and teacher, but as a dear, dear friend. You found a way to help me connect with my own history that I don't even remember at times growing up in Pennsylvania. You helped me find a way to laugh at some of the crazy things that can happen at Oradell Public School. And of course, we share our love of our crazy beagles. So I look forward to being able to go out very soon and toast you and your teaching career, but also to share with you how very much I love you. Thank you for everything you have done for us and for me.
So if anyone wants to speak, just come to the podium and just give us your name.
I want to enjoy the rest of it. I'm a nervous wreck here. All right. All right. I had to write some things down because I can't speak so as lovely off the cuff like Mrs. Hawley. Well, Terry, your knowledge of history, as Mrs. Hawley has said, far exceeds anyone else. I'd be in your class supporting kids and just be mesmerized by the wealth of knowledge that you possess. Everyone knows about your crazy, funny sense of humor, and it's made coming to work enjoyable every single day. And I would look forward to the notes that were left on my desk in the morning as you would drop off your lunch in my room. And your kindness many times just goes unnoticed as you take time out of your busy schedule to help so many others who are in need of assistance. And just like Helene, you also don't shy away from new tasks. I remember when you started teaching 6th grade, you had math, you were in early every day, studying, asking Scott and I questions, just so you could do the best job you could for those students and for your class. And again, when the pandemic hit and technology became front and center, you spent another full year teaching from home. You learned the ins and outs of Google Classroom, Zoom, and all the other online tools that were offered to you. And as many of us wanted to pull our hair out, you stuck with it and endured through it. And you will be missed immensely. And I still do expect my birthday card every year, as I do keep them, your fine artwork. I know, I only do share them with those special few. So no, they're not for everyone's eyes. And this isn't a goodbye, and I look forward to not only for Helene, but for you to see the next phase of your life and what it all looks like. So, thank you.
Oh no, kind of somber. This is not Mr. McGill. It's not a somber guy. I want to talk a little bit about a man who the phrase "a quiet talent" has probably not become quite fitting enough. I've known Mr. McGill for most of my professional career. We practically started together in the days when not too many men entered education, at least not elementary education. We bonded especially early because we saw in each other a camaraderie that was part mutual interest and part survival. In a field dominated by icons such as Carol Holtz, Angela Brenner, Dale Geis, C. Simmons, Rona Wask, Nancy Nixon, Susan Araldi, Eileen Choka, Helene Albrecht, and of course, Mrs. DeCorsia, better known now as the Mrs. McGill. As new teachers here at OPS, Terry and I were definitely outnumbered and often outmatched by our female counterparts. We had to raise our own game because, frankly, we had no other choice. An early riser, Mr. McGill, he was usually here first. At school each morning, his car was almost always the first one in the parking lot, standing alone, almost as if he never left the school. Every day, for as long as I could remember, he would neatly have a pressed shirt and a tie. That was not my style. However, he must have had a lot of them ready to go because every day they were pressed, neat, and I admired all of his ties. Not all of them. He would stand at his classroom door every day, greeting each kid each morning, always with something to make them feel special and recognized, more importantly. Whether it was a compliment, a joke, a playful tease, some quick suggestion, or just a heartfelt good morning, he always made the simple but meaningful effort to welcome each student individually. Kids are naturally drawn to Mr. McGill, often being their first male teacher, which could have been intimidating or scary to some, but he was a gentle force, as I said earlier, and that many of them needed that gentle force, and they later regularly sought that. I would often see him counseling a teary-eyed student or gently reassuring a youngster who was panicked because perhaps they did not have their homework. He was never harsh nor curt, but always empathetic and kind. Terry's talents are vast. He infused his talents for art and music perfectly into his memorable and effective teaching. One would look forward to the day you were the subject of his cartoons, when he discovered a subtle quality in a student's personality. A beloved caricature would often appear on the whiteboard, which was not always erased, or on a big piece of art paper hanging in the classroom. These caricatures always celebrated that child's unique quality, and all the kids loved them. To be drawn by Mr. McGill was a much anticipated rite of passage for children, let alone some of his adult colleagues. Mr. McGill's musical talents, with the banjo or the guitar, were always one of the highlights of the lesson. Whether he piqued the kids' interest in history by singing and playing old folk songs, or by sitting and strumming a tune connected with some tall tale they were currently reading. His admirable abilities made those lessons so much more rich and so much more memorable. Mr. McGill has a reputation, I should say, it continues, for slightly wicked humor. He could make you laugh even under the toughest circumstances. I should know, there were many long nights we spent together. Over the years, negotiating contracts where his humor made all those nights tolerable and sometimes actually enjoyable. Serving as president of the OEA for more years and times than he can probably care to remember, he had the ability to find even the slightest humor in those situations, or at least finding humor in himself. If not, we would probably have seen him retire maybe a little sooner. I want to share on a final note, and one that illustrates his commitment to his craft, the story of Mr. McGill and his afternoon math club. Terry and I taught 6th grade for many years together. I'd like to think we both had a rather good command of our content area, until a new math program came along, some of you may remember, as Everyday Math. A very wordy program that was the bane of our existence. And that first year, we couldn't believe how many hours we actually had to put in just to get that wrapped up in our own minds. We spent hours and hours commiserating on how best to deliver this very wordy math program. He and I would offer after-school math help sessions 2, maybe 3 times a week, right? And the kids would actually beg to come in droves. I remember many afternoons dismissing my own kids from my room so that they can go home at a reasonable time and make the crossing guard time limit, important thing, at their post. Time after time, I would walk by Mr. McGill's room as I was leaving and dismissing my own. He would still have 7 or maybe even 8 kids, asking him for more problems. They just did not want to stop. What more can you say about a teacher like that, whose students, at the end of a long day, do not want to leave and are pleading for more problems? I am sure that there will be many more parents, teachers, administrators who also would plead him to stay. But it's time for him gracefully to step out. I want to celebrate you, Mr. McGill, and I applaud you.
Sharon up here. James Butcher, music teacher, OEA president. As a specialist, you get to see many different teaching styles when classes come into your room. Terry's classes, he always had a hold on them, always had just a way with them that you knew the kids were enjoying themselves. He knew how to have fun with the kids, but he knew how to keep them in line as well. You never really had a big behavior problem with any of his kids. As a music teacher, you know, you think you're coming into a school like, oh, I know everything about music. I'm really pretty good. And, you know, the other music teachers will have that as well. And then here comes Terry, an absolute master at the banjo, guitar, stopping into my room, making up words to hot cross buns, teasing the kids that it may be the only song they ever learn, which may be true. But just knows so much. We've had the fortune of eating lunch together the past couple of years, and it's just always been a joy, whether it's talking about any historical thing, any music thing. It really has been amazing. I look to you as a mentor, as OEA president now. You've been a lifesaver at navigating this building. As now I think we're at one of 4, I think, left male teachers. I think we're dwindling. We're a little bit of a endangered species around here. It's been nice to bounce ideas off of you and kind of navigate OEA in our school. So I really want to congratulate you on your retirement, and I wish you all the best in the future.
I know you're not comfortable with receiving accolades. I know that. He's always the guy in the background in the band, and he's always willing to let somebody else sing lead and take the lead. But just this once, from your wife and your former colleague, I want to share and I want to shine the spotlight on you tonight. As we all know, or some of you don't, Terry has taught 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade, and never missed a beat, never complained, always dove into it and gave it his all. Scott had mentioned the birthday drawings. No child ever left his classroom without having their birthday caricature first on blackboard, and then we've graduated to whiteboard. Terry has drawn pictures or cartoons for every child who has ever asked for it in his class and not in his class. He's done it for teachers. He did it for me for years, designed our Sharp book covers, did it for Helene just the other day, never turns it down. And yes, he's drawn some very witty and funny birthday cards. Just ask Jennifer Tan.
Yes.
In 3rd grade, and I'm repeating what James said, but Terry has a deep and abiding affection for music that children just don't know anymore and don't sing, the American Songbook. So in 3rd grade, I remember they had their songbook. He made them songbooks. And I have it on good word that Ashley Herrick still has her 3rd grade songbook. And she's got to be in her 20s or 30s right now, and she still has it. The banjo was always in school. The guitar was always in school. But I want to talk a little bit about your compassion. You know, everyone can say he's got a great sense of humor and he's got a great command of his class. The only time I've ever heard him, if his class really got rowdy, the only words that Terry ever needed to use was knock it off. And then that was it. But I want to talk a little bit about his compassion. Years ago, he had a student in his class, and the family had endured a great tragedy. And we knew the family, and we were friends. And Terry, without any prompting, went to pick up this little boy that was in his 3rd grade class, and the boy loved trains. So Terry took him to New Hope, Pennsylvania, to get away from the house because there was a lot of sadness and all. And Terry took him on the train, and they wore their engineer's hat, and they had their whistles, and they went up and down on the train simply because he did not want that child to be in a house where there was so much sadness for the day. Once he had a child who lost her mother. So we spent the next weekend in an antique store looking for just the perfect sterling silver bracelet that he could give to her, just to let her know that he was thinking of her. Last year, I think it was during your pandemic year, at the end of the year, the class mothers had a party out in Memorial Field, and I made a goodie bag because once I retired, I became his goodie bag person. And one particular child loved to play the kazoo. She played the kazoo, so everyone got a kazoo in the bag. And a day later, the child told Terry, Mr. McGill, either I lost it or I didn't get one. I left it on Memorial Field, and I didn't have any more. I bought them in bulk. He ordered one from Amazon, and when it came, I said, okay, I will mail it to the little girl now. And he said, oh no, I'll bring it to her house. I want to make sure she gets it. He has taken possession of countless numbers of students' pets. They had a turtle because Terry's always had turtles, but then the little girl's parents didn't want to clean it or they didn't want it. We inherited the turtle. When March of 2020, when the pandemic hit and everyone had to leave rather suddenly, Terry came back to get his turtles to bring them home. And Danielle Lynch had her turtle in her classroom, but she did not have a tank set up or whatever, so we took her turtle home as well. And it's still at our house. We're waiting for Danielle to retrieve it, but we don't think that's happening. I had been, when Terry first started here, he was my 5th grade colleague, and Terry, Dale Curran and I were the senior members, And we gave Terry and Gina quite the initiation. Dale would quiz him on his grammar and spelling and such. But I feel that it was a trial by fire. He passed. But being his colleague and him teaching all the grades, I never was in his classroom to watch him do what he does. And that all changed when he had to stay home and destroy my dining room, turn it into a classroom, and be the teacher home during the pandemic. And that's when I really saw the kind of teacher he is. That first shortened year in March 2020, when he came home, the kids were discombobulated. It was very difficult for everybody to accept this new reality and such. So Terry would always try to lighten the atmosphere with the children online on Zoom and such. So on Fridays, they would have talent show, or somebody wants to sing a song before lunchtime or whatever. And there was this one particular boy, Henry. And Henry loved to perform Once in a Lifetime by the Talking Heads, with the David Byrne dance moves and such. Now, Terry, having a bluegrass background, had no clue who the Talking Heads were, nor did he have any clue who David Byrne was. But through Henry, Terry learned a new genre of music, and I was very happy that Henry introduced that to him, because quite honestly, when the bluegrass music goes on, I go out. So now we go to 21-22. He's home all year. I got shingles in my eye that year. And in December of 2020, I got shingles in my eye. And when I went to the ophthalmologist, he said to me, "Are you under any kind of stress? Shingles are stress." And I said, "My husband's in my dining room." And he understood, and luckily the medication worked. But watching him every day for an entire year, he had over 30 children. He kept them engaged. He kept them learning, but he kept them comfortable and happy and dedicated. They wanted to be there. It was hard for them to be home while their other classmates were here, but he made it special with pet shows. If you didn't have a pet, you could bring your stuffed animal. The beagle, our beagle, was a star of the pet show sometimes. Oh, she was a star every day, but she never stopped barking while he was working. But the talent show, and once everything went out, the whole system went out, except the kids were still on Zoom. Now, other teachers might have said, "Oh, what am I going to do? How am I, whatever." He just took out the guitar or banjo, whatever was available in my dining room, and he just played, and they sang, and they talked, and they sang until everything went back to working again without missing a beat. Mrs. Nichols will recall our neighbor across the street, Balda. At that time, she was 78 or 79, and she happened to come in one day. She thought it was Terry's lunchtime, but it wasn't. He was still teaching. And she came in, and she had brought him soup. So rather than just, telling the kids, "Oh, wait, here," just rather than stopping, he didn't miss a beat. Pulled up a chair, had Balda sit down, and the entire class were introduced to Balda. Balda she's retired now, but she had been the head OR nurse at Hackensack Hospital. So what did Balda do? She lectured the children about listening to their teacher, working very hard, and she wanted them all to become doctors and nurses. And that was Balda. So he never missed a beat. Now, Scott, you might have mentioned Sharp. Eileen and I still claim that we're the queens of Sharp. We know everything, but he is, like, if we're 2.0, he's 1.99 things as far as knowing things.
But that's awesome.
When he went up to Sharp 2 years ago, I think he told me, or last year, they had fishing at the pond. Well, Terry wasn't happy with the bait that the children had received. He just thought it was piddling. So what did he do? He had his class digging for worms, because he wanted to teach them how to hook a worm and put it on the hook and fish for real fish. because he's authentic. He wasn't merely content to just have them use the bait that Sharp gave him. He used his outdoor knowledge and everything he knows about the outdoors to enrich their lives, and I'm sure that made it all the better for them. So in closing, I want to say that he's kind, he's considerate. Yes, he's extremely funny. Helene always asks me, you're married for 20 years, how? And I just say, because he makes me laugh every single day. He's got an outstanding work ethic. He's dedicated to his profession. As Mr. Duffy said, he's always impeccably dressed. I know that because, again, because I'm retired, I was in charge of bringing his clothes to the cleaners and retrieving them because that became my job. But I'm proud of you. You know that. And I love you. Good evening. Eileen 2.0. This is directed at Helene as well as Terry. Piggybacking on what James had said, being a special area teacher, you really get to know the person when you see their class in your classroom. And never was there a time that these children didn't feel the love and get the experience of a lifetime having them as their teacher. And on a personal note, we're friends outside of school, and our children, same ages, similar ages, children similar ages, and we've gotten to know one another. The relationship in school and outside of school has warmed my heart. I love you both dearly. You're both amazing teachers. Congratulations on your retirement, and I can't wait to see what comes next for us outside of school.
Well, I have to say something. All right, Terry and I have nothing in common, and I mean nothing. He likes hunting, I hate it. He likes history, he likes George Washington, no. What else, Tara, that you like that I don't like? What? Sharp, he likes Sharp. Oh, no, I like dogs. I don't want the dog hair on me, but I love dogs. Anyway, I met Terry when he came, but years ago, student teaching. I was the assistant director of summer school, which was Schaefer Exploration. Scott Ryan and I, well, Scott Ryan started it, and I was the assistant director. And Terry was my student teacher. That you were able to do it during the summers, like alternate route, right? Yeah. So Terry, one thing about Terry, what we did have in common is we both liked to walk. So that's what kept us together. Working with Terry was so much fun because, yes, he's funny. Yes, he draws funny things. Yes, he gives you funny birthday cards or leaves notes on your desk. But also the dedication. I still don't understand how you had a heart attack and came back to school so quickly. But anyway, that's your dedication. And I want to thank you for always being such a great friend, for always making me laugh, for being able to, the banter that we have back and forth, because we don't have anything in common. But we love each other. I love you, Terry. And I know that we'll be hanging out now that we're both retired, so we'll walk together. The hills of Hasbrook Heights. Oh, wait, one more thing. And the funniest thing is the way Terry makes fun of me. He imitates me, and it sounds nothing like me. But he loves to imitate me.
I'm here on the behalf of the Oradell PTA, who thanks you for your dedication and congrats you on your retirement.
Hi, my name is Henry Wax. I'm an 8th grader at Riverdale Middle School right now. And I was in the
Would you like to sing for us?
Oh, gosh. Oh dear, no, I'm
We're
okay.
open to it.
So what that means that I was part of the 2019-2020 fifth grade Mr. McGill and Melinda class. I was in Mr. McGill's class when the pandemic started, and it was truly an experience that is really hard to forget. The shirt I'm wearing right now, it says Dobro on it, and it was given to me by Mr. McGill. It was also part of a two-part gift that he gave me. He gave me an album from Flat and Scruggs, which, while I may have introduced him to Talking Heads, he introduced me to them, and so much more. And it has helped shape so much of my musical knowledge. And while I could go on and on about so many parts of my experience with Mr. McGill, to keep it short and content, when I was in school with him, you know, everybody did all the things that everybody talked about. Everybody got the birthday drawings and all these special moments that you got to have when you were in his class. These little things, even the little things mattered to Mr. McGill because he cared about each and every person. Again, I was part of that COVID class, so I never got my drawing, but but
I hear a request.
even you know, on an even better moment for me, on my birthday, he sent me an email, and it was just "Happy birthday, me boy," and it was so incredible because I just he cared, he really did. And at Sharp, we were on these hikes, having these moments during COVID, through these talent shows, through these banjo playings, through all of this. I really, my life was changed. My life was really changed for the better because I got to meet somebody who cared and really truly cared. My first male teacher, he brought a new perspective to my school life, to my music life, to my life altogether, and for that I am eternally grateful, and I thank you for everything you did for me.
If you can all just state your name.
I'm Chloe.
I'm Raina.
I'm Sienna.
I'm Gwen.
We were Mr. McGill's like COVID class, and I think we can all agree that he was like our favorite teacher. Cause even when during COVID, it was just a crazy time. He did not know how to use Zoom, and he still stuck with it every day. And he still got online even though we were always late to class.
It's okay now.
And even when I was failing history during fifth grade, he always tried to meet with me after everyone left the call to make sure I got 100. And like all like the extra help where we got candy. And then like when people like other teachers would like, come into your room to get coffee from you from your machine in the back. So we're thankful, we're thankful to have a really good teacher like you, because I don't think we would have made it through fifth grade. And I don't think I would have gone through class with her if you weren't there to teach me and just be by my side and support me.
And the reason why we're all friends today is because you put me and Raina together. And then, like, we all, like, got close. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Also, I would like to say that I got the last drawing for like I got the last birthday drawing because I was like the day before like we all went to lockdown. That's it.
Oh.
Hi, I'm here with the cheese man.
Hello.
Can you just give us your name?
I'm Kim Kayaski.
Jackson.
Jax. I feel like everyone had you as a pandemic teacher. I mean, how far back does this go? Our pandemic teacher was Miss Pisa. I know. And while she did a great job, and it was very, very hard shoes to fill going forward. And I can't tell you how grateful we were to have you as a teacher to get us through the most unknown, anxious year ahead. He was going into 4th grade. It was a pandemic, remote class, and we couldn't have been so much grateful. And he's home, and we were so worried about him learning that when Rich and I were home, and we could hear him giving speeches in his room, talking about mathematics, laughing, and the stories that he would be telling. It was great. So we were so happy about that. But most of all, you also had him for another 5th year. And he also told us about history. And from what I hear, you're magical at history. And it's always a proud moment for a parent when we go to a place and your son is able to tell us a little bit of where we are. We were at Pearl Harbor a couple years ago, and Jackson was always able to tell us a little bit because of what you taught him. And when we were in the souvenir shop, he got a newspaper with the headline of what happened on that dreadful day. And he was so excited to grab that paper and to bring it back and bring it home to just show you. Do you remember that? Yeah. And he was just so excited. So it's exciting for us that he was, impacted by your teaching through history. And another time was when we were at Fort Henry. Mm-hmm. Fort Henry. I have no idea where Fort Henry is. I don't even know what it is. So we were in Lake George, and it just so happened to be there. And we were passing by, and Jackson says, "We got to go to Fort Henry." And I said, "Why is that?" He goes, "Mr. McGill taught us about Fort Henry." So we took a picture in front of it. He's like, "Send this to Mr. McGill. He's going to be happy that I was able to teach you, and we're happy that you're able to teach us." And Rich and I were just talking about how during your remote teachings about history, and we loved your stories, and we learned so much from you. We would actually sit outside Jackson's door and listen to your stories and listen to your teachings and education. We literally sat on the ground, eating popcorn, listening to it. But also, we didn't realize how much of a part of our lives you were before you made our mark on us. We were floored, Rich and I were floored when we found out that your father did a cartoon for Rich as Athlete of the Year way back when. So I couldn't believe it was you, and then also did one for his brother. Really? Oh my goodness. This is Rich Kayaski, so he's excited. So thank you. It's amazing. And that's it. Do you have anything to say? No. He doesn't have anything to say. So thank you. And happy retirement. Now that you're retired, I would hope to hear you play the banjo for us. Thank you.
Well, I would like to say that unfortunately, my 2 boys did not have you as a teacher. But of course, we always heard how wonderful you are. But Mr. McGill used to hold one of the most popular and packed summer exploration classes, cartooning. And my older son loved to draw, so I think in 3rd or 4th grade he had taken your class, and every day he was teaching us how to draw. And in 2017, when we were doing construction to the house, I had to pack up his room, and all the things that he had saved were your cartoons. He was 20 at the time, and we still have them in our house. So wanted to thank you for all the times you've been here 29. You're sure you don't want to do 30? And also, Mr. Darian could not be here, but he and I both wanted to tell you and thank you and let you know that it was a pleasure to do negotiations with you this round. I'll be talking about that later, but we wanted you to know that. So you're up.
I'm up. I'd just like to thank everybody coming. I'm looking around the room at all my wonderful colleagues and the wonderful administration, my wife, and my father's here, my sister's here, and just lucky to be part of the Oradell community. The students first, and you can see what wonderful students I've had through the years, and I always enjoyed having them. They didn't always enjoy having me every day, but I enjoyed them every day. That's always the first for a teacher. And then, my colleagues, from the newest colleagues to the colleagues I taught with, 30 years ago, have all been great in all the grades I have. And I thank everybody for coming because I see all the faces around there. And it's tough to get teachers out on a weeknight, and I'm thrilled. When I taught third grade for many years, and fourth grade for just 1 year, and fifth grade and sixth grade. So all the colleagues were great, always had a great time with all of them, and always laughed. And really just thankful to be part of the Oradell community, and it has meant a lot to me to be part of this community. Lots happened. I remember, I met my wife here, and I was petrified that I was going to do a math problem incorrectly the first time I met her. And I did remember how to do it. I finally remembered, but yes, and Dale Curran correcting my spelling and things like that in front of everybody. And Melissa, she gave me a what for a few times, I know, but just a thrill. And I remember Rochelle when she was a little girl in third grade. Yeah. And, just everybody. And Helene, I'll tell that later. I can just, but everybody, I've had a great time with all of you. And I just thank you for all the kind words. You certainly humble me, and I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
We're going to take pictures of our retirees with their families and colleagues, but we'll do it after our next retiree because I believe our principal has to leave and I know she wants to speak. So next up is Mrs. Helene Albrecht. I feel we just did this recently, but a few months ago, Teacher of the Year last year. When someone gave out the secret that she was going to retire and none of us knew. Remember that? Who was that? Oh, good job. I'm owning it. Okay, whereas Helene Albrecht has tendered her resignation as a teacher in the Oradell Public School District to become effective November 1st, 2022, after over 34 years of dedicated and faithful service to the Oradell Public School District, and whereas during her many years in our school system, she has imparted her knowledge and understanding of the educational needs of the students of Oradell Public School, and whereas she has influenced the lives of many children and has earned the love and respect of her students, colleagues, and the Oradell community, and whereas she has given unselfishly of her time and effort in the interest and welfare of the children of our school district, now therefore let it be resolved that the Oradell Board of Education hereby recognizes Ms. Albrecht's contribution to the district and expresses its appreciation of her dedicated service and directs that this resolution be included in the minutes of the board and that a copy be presented to Ms. Helene Albrecht as a token of its esteem, dated this 27th day of October 2022. And I guess I'm going to open up if just Miss Hawley wants to go first, because I think she has to.
Get comfortable, Helene. I know you'd prefer to sit. The first day I met you, I was so impressed with your hair. And now I see your family, and I can tell who they are because they have the same great hair. A little jealous. And you came up to me and you introduced yourself to me, and you said, okay, so, like, what's your deal? Like, what kind of admin are you gonna be? Like, do you know? And I had been in AP for like 5 minutes. And I started sharing some of the things that I believed in, and you were like, oh yeah, I like that too. And I think I hit mindfulness. And it was kind of all downhill from there for us. I will never forget walking into your classroom and there being a table with a giant hot cravat on it. And I came back downstairs and I was like, does anyone know that Helene's upstairs giving the kids hot chocolate? And Megan said, yeah, we know. It's kind of like her thing. It makes everybody really happy. Wait until you see her take the kids downstairs and let them run up and down the hallways. Like Terry, you've always worked very hard to connect with your students, to get to know them, to get to know their families. You talk to moms and dads well into the evening. You are always on Instagram, trying to find new things to do with your students. And I know you've been doing that all this year. Anybody else would have been like, well, I'll just do all what I'm normally what I've always done. But not Helene Albrecht. Nope, she's gonna find some new stuff to do. And it's always special. You create a love for reading and writing with your students that lasts a lifetime for them. You can handle unusual or hard topics like nobody else. Last year, you came down to me and you were like, hey, so I had this conversation and I think I need you to know about it because the parents might question why we were talking about it. But you handled it so beautifully that I looked at you and I was like, no one's gonna ask about that. That was perfect. A student had a question and you answered it and you helped your whole class feel comfortable with it. One of my very favorite memories of the pandemic, especially that first year when we reopened part-time, was sitting in Megan's office and looking out the window and seeing you walking those kids. And you said to me, Michelle, they need fresh air, but I need it too. We are all going crazy and we need to walk. And it was like watching the cover of Madeline come alive, because there was the teacher and she was walking faster than the kids. And every once in a while you see a kid be like, come on, come on. And I know you've said to your colleagues more than once, oh, come on, what did you talk about at lunch today? Because you know I walked, so I couldn't be with you. And then you text them and make them tell you everything they said already at lunch, because you want to make sure that you're a part of your colleagues. I know that you're not 100% sold on retiring. And that's okay, because you already have a lot to fill your time. You have an upcoming wedding, and you said to me, you know, there were so many times that I put our OPS kids above my girls that I know this is right now. So when you wake up, I think next week you're gonna be fine, because after Halloween, the first Halloween parade we've had in how many years, you're gonna be fine on Tuesday. I think it might be like the week later. When you wake up and go, oh boy, what did I do? I want you to remember that your faith gets you through everything that you do. And if it's not 100% right, you can always come back. because we need subs. And ask Eileen Choka. It's a great place to sub. And you still get to be part of the community, and maybe we'll take you to Sharp again. No, I promise you don't have to go to Sharp. I promise. One of the things that you don't know is that you have helped me become a better, stronger administrator, because I made some mistakes along the way, as we all do. And you've always been open and honest about talking about the mistakes. You make a hard conversation easy, because I know that no matter what happens, you and I are going to talk it out, and we're going to be good. And if we don't have to 100% agree on everything, for us to be amazing colleagues. I am really looking forward to continuing our book talks via text and seeing pictures of the wedding and having you come back to sub. And I know, because of who you are, that you are going to have the most wonderful adventures next. And it's not going to just be book club and mahjong and canasta. Pickleball, I forgot about the pickleball, that's a good one. It's going to be family time and exploration time. And you're going to have a fantastic new adventure. Plus, we are always here. Thank you for everything that you've done for us. I'm so proud to know you, and I love you.
I figured I beat you. Well, I'm going to tease you a little bit. You can take it.
Can you turn your mic up a little bit?
Sure.
Okay.
How's that?
Yeah, or the volume, yeah.
Yeah. How's that? Good? All right. Volume? Yeah. All right. How's that? How's that? I first remember meeting you, Miss Albrecht, many years ago when I was a brand new teacher myself, and I cautiously walked into the copy room. That's the OPS version of the water cooler, where Helene, without picking up her head, assertively asked, "Who are you?" Without missing a beat, or still not picking up her. No. I remember it. You don't, because it was just a day in the life for you. I was a scarred newbie. You kidding? The questioning continued without picking up her head. "Do you have copies to make? Because this is my only prep today, and I'll be here for a while." And just like that, I knew we would either be best friends or professional rivals. Well, you can all figure out the path that that relationship took. Personally speaking, Helene is one of the most honest and candid people I've ever met. And that's not a criticism in any way. It's a huge compliment, actually. You always know where you stand with Helene. And that is just a really refreshing position sometimes to take when too many people are afraid to ask tough questions, because you might possibly bruise a fragile ego. But you're honest and you're candid and you really want to know about the person. We could all benefit from a little of that candid kind of personality that you have. We all can, for sure, because it truly comes from the heart, Helene. She's one of the most curious people I know, not just curious about her subject matter or her content area. She's a master at that craft, for sure. But she really wants to know about you, how you tick, what you're about, and it unfolds in a much deeper purpose, and I'll share. Don't be shocked or surprised or offended if within the first 5 minutes of meeting her, She may ask you some very personal questions. How old are you? How much do you make? Who colors your hair? Are you married? And of course, most importantly, do you have a beach house? The other thing that amazes me about Helene is how she manages to look better each passing year. I look in the mirror now and I see my dad, and sometimes I see my grandfather. Helene, however, manages to look younger and better now than she did when I first met her. And that was 30 years ago. What's her secret? Does she have one of those hidden portraits somewhere in her attic? If so, I'd like one. Professionally speaking, everyone should know how much Mrs. Albrecht has given to OPS over her career as an educator. Many of you may not know that she actually started the summer school program that we now call Mrs. Schaefer Explorations. She ran the program with Mr. Ryan with much success for decades. I was happily the grateful benefactor of her very popular Lego class that she originally created to such fanfare, and thank you for that. We actually had to turn kids away, also with Mr. McGill's cartooning, and I think we had to add a few extra classes in some years, for sure. And it was one of the most popular and enjoyable classes for anyone who taught it, so I thank you for that. She also helped to bring the middle school dance to this school, which has now evolved into what is now, I think, is still the ever-popular Spring Fling. And that was courtesy of you, the 6th grade social, now the Spring Fling. She has also successfully taught almost every grade level in her career. She's been appointed as the reading and math specialist in other years, so completely a well-rounded resume for sure. She has also built personal and lasting relationships with former students and parents alike. I very often get pictures from Mrs. Albrecht on all of her social escapades as she poses with many of our former students with a familiar caption, "Guess who I'm with?" And that's all I get, no names. It could be 24 years later, but I have to guess who they are, and she really holds me to it. Occasionally I'm right. One of the warmest and most special memories for me was when we taught 6th grade together. And it was in particular during Teacher Recognition Week. Every year without fail, as part of her language arts writing lab, Helene would ask students to choose a teacher to whom they would like to write a letter highlighting why they were appreciated, the teacher, that is. When they were completed and all personally reviewed and edited, for the most part by her, and this took weeks, they were presented to the individual teachers, and they were such an incredibly thoughtful and welcome surprise each year. To this day, I've kept every single one. This is the kind of generosity that showcases Miss Albrecht's respect for her craft, as well as for her colleagues. She is a class act indeed. Coming fresh off, as Mrs. Nichols put it, her Teacher of the Year recognition, it's quite ironic but fitting that Helene Albrecht is leaving OPS at the top of her game. And I know from our very recent personal conversations, she will still dearly miss this. And yet, as one of the most dedicated and talented teachers these halls have seen, she will be missed even more. Congratulations. May your future be filled with long, fast-paced walks, hopefully through this path again. We'll miss you, but I get to have you lunchtimes. Thank you. Congratulations.
Eleanor Romer. Helene, I'm here to welcome you to the golden gates of retirement. You are preceded by many friends who have passed through these gates, including myself. So after 3 years of experiencing life as a retired teacher, I would like to pass on to you the top 10 things I have learned about retirement. Number one, there is absolutely no reason you should get up at 6 o'clock in the morning unless you are catching an early flight for a vacation, or you're trying to beat traffic to the Jersey Shore, or one of your girls is having a baby. Embrace sleeping in. Number two, do not be alarmed when it's Sunday at 4 o'clock. You know the feeling. But once retired, you no longer have lesson plans to write, emails to respond to, or papers to grade by tomorrow. It will take anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks to shake that panic, but by Christmas it will pass. So I tell you to embrace your Sunday nights. 3, there are certain things that will slowly fade from your vocabulary, including, but not limited to, the following: SGO, self-assessment, differentiation, scaffolding, think, pair, share, learning objective, success criteria, IEPs, and STEM. So use of the following terms will help with the transition: happy hour, late lunch, canasta night, and 7-day weekends. Embrace your new social life. Come winter, number 4, you will no longer have to peek out the bedroom window at 1 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m., hoping to see the first foot of snow. You will not have to check your phone waiting for the snow day phone call. Helene, every day will be a snow day. So embrace the snow, or lack thereof. Number 5, do not be surprised when your former students continue to reach out to you. It is one of the most gratifying and validating moments you can experience. However, brace yourself when you come to realize that some of them are now eligible for membership in AARP. Embrace that validation. Number 6, when you are out in public, you will have to resist the urge to snap your fingers at children you do not know and correct their behavior. Embrace the freedom. They are not your kids. It's no longer a reflection on you. In fact, my advice is run right along with them. It'll keep you young. Embrace the freedom. Number 7, you will find yourself obsessed with school supplies, especially when they are on sale. My advice is to stay away from stores like Staples, Target, and CVS for a minimum of 2 years during the months of August and September. Instead, buy suntan lotion and vacation clothes. Summer isn't over until late September. Embrace the shopping. Number 8, and I swear this is true, you will never be bored. One day you will say to me, how did I ever fit in working? Think of all the things you wish you had time to do over the years. Guess what? This is it. So you are never too old. Get out there and just do it. Embrace the possibilities. Number 9, don't stress making doctor and dentist appointments. Remember, you no longer need an appointment after 4. You can take the first appointment they throw at you and still have the whole day ahead of you. So embrace the flexibility. And lastly, you will always remember your students, and they will always remember you. Always. Everything else will fade away, and you'll experience new adventures that you never imagined. Don't be afraid. I will be here for you. The faces and memories of your students will always remain in your heart, and how lucky you are to have affected so many lives and to have had your life be affected by so many. Cherish all those memories and look forward to all the new ones you're going to make. Embrace your accomplishments. Congratulations, my friend. I love you. And remember, we have lunch next Wednesday at noon. Love you.
I hope I don't go into labor from getting nervous from talking. So I've had the pleasure of knowing Mrs. Albrecht as a teacher, a friend, a coworker, a mentor, and honestly, even a mom. I know we joke all the time, but you are truly my school mom, and my mom knows it too. When I first got hired, Helene was my mentor. She made me feel comfortable, shared all of her resources, and taught me how to persevere through challenges to get the job done. She not only taught me how to be a better educator, but she also always checked on my mental and emotional well-being, which as a first-year teacher, I really needed. I have also gotten to know Mrs. Albrecht as a teacher. I have seen her teach 3rd and 6th grade, and no matter the grade, she was always looking for fun ways to incorporate learning into her classroom to inspire all of her students. She spent hours painting Jenga blocks so that she could teach her kids different parts of speech. She spent hours painting their desks so that kids could have fun and write practice math problems on them. She had students give each other recycled gifts so that they could feel a sense of community. She wrote engaging and motivational quotes on the board every morning to make sure that her class was happy. She was very well known for her toothpaste activity, in which she had the kids empty tubes of toothpaste only for them to realize that they could never get it back in, hence, be careful with your words. She encouraged group and partner work, created handshakes and different motivational brain movements into her class, and had students take ownership of their classroom. Her class painted kindness rocks in 6th grade and placed them around the school. She had a book tasting event in which she organized a day for kids to share their favorite books. Right until the very end, even this year, you can find Helene's car in the parking lot far past 4 o'clock because she's always looking for ways to be better and for her kids to be happy. As a coworker, Mrs. Albrecht is extremely respected by the entire building. All of the time and dedication that she takes in the classroom helps to motivate other teachers. She is constantly sharing her resources and praising others for sharing their ideas. Something that I have always admired about her is that she's always looking to learn from others and always looking to be better. While many other teachers become comfortable with their practices, Helene goes above and beyond, looking for new trends, styles, and the best ways to teach children. Everyone at OPS knows Helene and has definitely been touched by her kindness in some way. Whether it was when she went around and wrote a kind quote about each and every staff member and put it outside their door, or when she started a secret snow person gift exchange, or simply that she dropped by a coworker's classroom to give someone a special gift or a small token just because it reminded of them or made her think, or she thought about them. She's always doing things to build compassion around the building. She sends cards to staff members that are struggling, and she writes cards for staff members in celebration. If someone has a baby, gets married, etc., Helene makes sure to recognize them, even if they're not in her grade level or not her friend. Helene has created a sense of family and community in the classroom and around the building. She has instilled compassion and kindness in the hearts of everyone. She really embodies the quotation by Maya Angelou that is hanging in our school hallway. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So Helene, thank you, and I know your legacy will live on forever, and when you do get bored, you can come watch my daughter. That's what you're gonna do.
I'm on the behalf of the Oradell PTA again.
Can you tell us your name?
AJ Castro.
Thank you.
And I want to, the PTA wants to congratulate you on your retirement and thank you for your dedication and hard work over the years.
Hi, I'm Addison Viscardi. And hi, I'm Natalie Picnic, and we're 10th graders at Riverdale High School. And Mrs. Albrecht, I just wanted to say I'm so thankful that I had you as my teacher. You made learning fun every day, and you made my 6th grade experience really unforgettable. I really especially loved every moment in the classroom with you. Enjoy retirement. And I wanted to say, Mrs. Albrecht, I'm so glad I got to have you as one of my elementary school teachers. Thank you for being one of the people who got me through 6th grade year and getting me prepared for middle school. Wishing you the best on your retirement.
That's true. So very verbiage. Yeah. All right, Ms. Pisa.
Hi, Melissa Pisa. This is for both Helene and Terry.
Just raise the mic up a little bit.
So I just wanted to say I've been here for 20 plus years, and in those years, it has been a privilege and an honor to work with both Helene and Terry. We've all been in 3rd grade at some point or another. And the one word that comes to my mind for both of them is consummate professional. You will be missed in the hallways, but you will always be part of the OPS community.
I think you're going to wear it every day.
Hello, my name is Megan of Veldhouse, and it's cool to speak into a microphone. Anyway, I'm sorry for interrupting the order that was established, but I did want to talk before it got too late at night. And Miss Albrecht, let me tell you, you do not look old enough to retire. You look the same age as when I had you, which was probably half of my education ago. Anyway, so not to throw Ms. Bozios under the bus again, but because I only came here in 6th grade, she allowed me and everybody else who was new to come into the school and walk around. And she let me go into the 6th grade hallway because, I was in 6th grade. And I said, somebody told me at Step-Up Day that Miss Albrecht lets us have hot chocolate. And she just goes, yeah, I let her do some things I don't let other teachers do because she's really special. And you were. She was entirely right. You really were. I recently found a story that I wrote when I was in 5th grade. And it was terrible. It was like all dialogue. There was no plot. I think the prompt was something about a ghost. There was no ghost in it. It was just really bad. And then I found one that I wrote in 7th grade. It was an essay, and it was a lot better. So something happened there. And what happened was 6th grade. And who taught me to write in 6th grade? Well, that was you. You taught me a lot of things. A few technical things, like definitely has finite in it. I still spell definitely. I'm the only one who gets it right, and I'm in 12th grade now. Never start a story with once upon a time, or a question. Don't start an essay with a question. Technical things like that. Longer things on how to write poetry, how to write really anything. It needs to be natural. You can't force it. You were the first reason why I was ever published in anything. You will be the reason why I ever publish anything because you were the first and you were the one that started that. I've been published online a few more times. It's really because of you, even though I don't have you in the dedication. You taught me things that weren't related to school. I remember that when my mother would email you, you would say, well, have Megan to come and talk to me. And I was very afraid to do that. I did not like coming and talking to you. Even though you were very nice, it was just not something that I'd ever had to do before. Well, because you were so nice, I'm not afraid to do that anymore. I do go to all of my teachers now, and I'm not worried at all. And it's really a very valuable skill, so thank you for that. You've taught me many skills that I don't really need to recite in order, because, I have them, and we all know how lovely Miss Albrecht is. We can all imagine the wonderful things that she's taught me. You made being in class lovely. I was hoping Miss Hawley didn't mention it, but yeah, I was going to talk about how you would take us into the basement to run back and forth, and it was carpeted, and it had a slope. I don't know if it's still like that, and you told us don't run too fast, otherwise you'll fall and you'll get rug burn. And I did fall. I did not get rug burn. I was hoping that you wouldn't see, and then I got back up and continued, because I was like, this is fun, and I wasn't injured. That can be made metaphorical, and how you taught me to get up after a fall, or that can be literally seen as I was 11 and I fell and I got back up and it was just fine. So, in summary, thank you very much. You were you and Mr. Duffy too. Where is he? There you are. I still remember the preamble, by the way. Anyway, so you and him are the reasons why 6th grade has had such an impact on me, and OPS in general. I was only here for a year, but it seems like a whole lot more. And I was very lucky to have you. And I'm going to college next year, and I will be lucky if any one of my professors is half as wonderful and impactful as you were. So thank you very much, and have a lovely retirement.
Megan is going to be an author one day. I always said, when you write your first book, dedicated to them. I don't want to speak after that. She was so articulate. Jen Tashton. I have known Helene since the day I started here 16 years ago. I'm not going to cry, Helene. I'm not going to cry. I actually wasn't going to get up and speak because I'm going to cry. But I couldn't help it. Eleanor, I want to retire. I was sitting there, I was like, I have to let everybody, I want to retire. That sounds dreamy. And Mr. Duffy, she's still asking the same questions. She asked me the same questions years after she asked them to you. And I can't say any more than what everybody has been saying about you. I wish I could say that you were like my mom at school, but Gina's hold that title. You're an incredible friend. Don't go. I'm not ready for you to leave. What's that? I'm not ready to cry. No. I'm not gonna go any further. I just wanted to say good luck. Have the greatest retirement. All of those things. Pickleball, I know we're gonna be watching you across the street. I know we are. And I will take my class out for a walk so we can watch you playing pickleball, because my class needs to take a walk. So thank you for being my best friend here and for everything you've done for me. And Mr. McGill, who's gonna call me fella? Who's gonna call me fella? I've had many pictures drawn on my board, witches that resembled me with witches' hats. I've gotten some wonderful birthday cards, one most recently. You are a force to be reckoned with. You are hysterical. We are gonna miss you in these hallways, both of you, for sure. So all the best. Don't forget about us. We're here. And who said we're here all the time, Michelle? And I was like, literally. Literally, we're here all the time. So pop in. Helene, you promised to come for lunch because now you can, because you're going to walk in the morning. We got the whole thing. So good luck to both of you. She just said, I hope I'm alive when you retire. I'm talking to her. I'm old. Not that far.
My name's Terry McGill. I was the guy that was just up there. And so Mr. Duthie actually hit on something that's very important, that, Helene does treat you like family. In fact, look at the lovely family over here. I can't match the looks department of this bunch here, but I have matched some of the anguish this poor man has gone through. Because Rick Albrecht, and I said it last time, but he's the strongest man on earth, let me tell you. And Rick, I'm telling you, but it'll get to her, don't you worry. Because many times she's called me a work husband and Scott a work husband. And boy, I've been on the receiving end when I didn't do the right thing. I can remember riding home and the phone ringing and I was just getting it. And I just thinking, I'm not married to you. I'm not married to you. I don't have to take this. And I'm getting it and I'm all upset. And I don't know what, I know what I did, but it was what I didn't do, I guess. I'm sorry. I was so careless, you know. So, but she's wonderful. But yeah, family, like, and then I had a wonderful new colleague that came to school because she'll ask anything or say anything. And the poor little thing, the first thing Helene says to her, "Oh, you're the one he's cheating on me with, from me with." That was the first word. Well, yeah, I didn't say it was Mia, but yes, it is Mia. So that's who I was cheating on Helene with because she was in the same grade level. So I had, you know, so it's been a lot of fun. She was the first face I met in Oradell. And I can tell you, she was such a wonderful teacher. I can tell you that she was the first person I saw really read a book with Stregonona and complete with Italian accent. She played Stregonona in the book and did a great job with that. And then she abruptly watched me and eyed me for a minute and then left. And so, which she does today too. We'll be on the phone, we'll be anywhere, and she'll just leave. It just go whatever way. I gotta go now. And click. But the time that you get with her is great. I've told the last time about us walking, so I'm not going to tell that one. But I will tell you, on a serious note, you can't ask for a better teacher, and it's been said. She never grows stale, or she never every year is different. And poor Rick does all that stuff too. I know, I've seen him again every year coming in with more stuff. But she never stays, her show changes all the time. And she's not afraid to change, and she wants to do that. Her kids know how much she loves them because she does. She brings the hot chocolate, which I was the benefactor of some hot chocolate at many a time. And they all loved being in her room. And it just, the education never stopped, and she was always grading, and going over everything they wrote. And she was a wonderful colleague to work with and a wonderful friend. And I know I won't miss you because we're going to go walking, but I think Oradell is losing a tough act to follow. So best of luck in your retirement.
Hi, James Butcher. I have no idea how to follow any of what has just happened for the last 45 minutes or so. So all I would say is congratulations. OPS is going to be a little less of a bright place after Halloween. Much success. We're looking forward to celebrating you in the spring, along with Terry as an OEA and having a wonderful time. Congratulations on retirement.
Sharon McGill, retired. Helene told me when she teased us about retiring, not retiring, not retiring, and that. The one thing she said to me with her pointed finger was, "And you better not tell funny stories about me." So I've been reduced to telling serious stuff about Helene, but I'm going to save all the funny stuff for the retirement dinner because I've got a lot. The only thing I will say.
You can tell some tonight.
Well, but everybody is, Scott's covered it, who are you, how much money do you make, where do you live, and such. And having lived in southern Bergen County, which Helene doesn't like to go to quite often, I can tell you, and you know what? I've known her, how long have I known you? The kids are what, 32? So I've known you more than 32 years, right? Okay. Up until just like a couple of years ago, I live in Hasbrook Heights. We live in Hasbrook Heights. I never knew she went to school in Hasbrook Heights and lived in Hasbrook Heights because she didn't want to admit she was from Lower Bergen County. So I'm reduced to telling serious stuff, except the fact that I know that Ashley knew what the caloric content of a fudge bar was when she was 4 years old. And I know that personally. Helene, now that I'm retired, she doesn't seem to, realize that when you're retired, I don't have to get up early. So usually I'm in bed reading the news on my phone, and the phone rings. It's Helene. It's 8 o'clock. And I'm like, thank God I'm not a person who sleeps late, because she'd be waking me up every day. And, there will be her casual observations and things and rants and raves or something funny or whatever and all. But last week she called me up, and she was very, a bit melancholy, because she said, I've worked so long. I've had such passion for my work. And what's going to happen when I'm gone? No one's going to remember me. No one's going to remember the things I've done. And no, in a few years, they won't even know I existed here. So I thought about it. And of course, and then she abruptly hung up on me, because she said, I gotta go. So here I'm feeling sorry for her and feeling all emotional about her, and then she hung up on me. But after I hung up, I kept thinking and thinking, and I said, you know what, Helene, you know what it reminded me of, our conversation? Hamilton. Who will tell your story? Okay? And I know who will tell your story. It's all of the students who spoke here. Every student you have ever had will share something that they've experienced with you. The shy girl who didn't think she was pretty as her classmates, and you whispered to her, you look beautiful today. The boy who was a bit of a bully because he was insecure, and you said to him, be yourself, be what you are. You don't have to show off. You don't have to do this. The child who wrote something and you praised her or him to the high heavens. Those are the people who will tell your story. Who will tell your story? Helene? I have to read from my notes here. The kids you comforted, the parents who you gave them reassurance, yes, they will achieve this. Yes, they will get this. They're still young. They're still learning and such. They will tell your story. Who will tell your story? Your colleagues, your teacher friends, those you've mentored, those who have come your way and gone to other schools. They will tell your story, because there's so much to tell, so much to tell. Who will tell your stories? Your students who are now adults and saw something that you did or how you treated them, who are now treating their colleagues or their children, and remembering the kindness that you showed them and knowing that kindness is the way to go. They will tell your story. Those children who are now adults and who are happy to share marriages and births and celebrations with Helene. They run into her down the shore, and as Scott said, she sends us pictures, group text. Who's this, who's this, who's this, and we have this endless guessing game. But they will tell your story because you've become so much a part of their lives, and they know that. Who will tell your story? Your family, your daughters, your husband, who saw the hours and the time and the dedication that you put through and the example you set for your daughters, to knowing that there is a balance. You're a wonderful mother. You used to put me to shame with all the videos you took of your kids. But your family will tell your story. Your sisters who appreciate the hard work that you do, they will tell your story. So when I think about it, Helene, you're going to be much more than a retired, and I put that in quotes, teacher, because you're going to be sharing these gifts always with everyone you meet and with everything you do. You will still be that person that you've always been. Might be different circumstances and it might be a different place, but you will still be that person. And believe me, you all honor her tonight, and we've shared your story. Thank you. Wait till the retirement then. I'm not jumping in.
Hi, Mrs. Norrie. It feels like old home week, right? I'm Erin Tashin. I actually was an employee of Oradell Public School from 1989 to 2000. And one of the first friends I had, I want to say, Helene, was you, I think, right? And we, although we didn't work together initially, she really shaped me as an educator, and I left the district and went on to do other teaching and educational things. But when I look back on my career, you were definitely one of those people that has impacted me as an educator, as a person, as a mother, and I just thought I wanted to share something with you. So when we went to second grade together, I can't remember the year, I, for the first time, realized that teaching was beyond the school day, and you were like, no, we stay and we do work. And I was like, oh, okay. And then you were like, and then we go to conferences and we learn new techniques and we bring them back and we create huge school-wide things like Special Persons Day. Do you remember that? And then you said to me, right? And then you said to me, no, we also get involved in the families. This was like our conversation. We get involved with the families. We go to first communions, we go to birthday parties, and this was all like, okay, here I was a 20-something teacher, and I was like, okay. And you're like, and then we come on Saturdays and we decorate. We decorate our hallway, we make incredible bulletin boards. And I kept thinking back as I'm listening to everybody talk, that your work ethic became my work ethic. And so when I keep thinking about what people are saying about you and about Terry, who I was lucky enough to work with also, we go into teaching to make an impact. We want to make an impact on our students. But I'm hearing that you both have made impacts beyond your students, impacts into the families, impacts in other teachers, and you definitely have impacted my life, and then I hope I went on to impact others. So your legacy, as Sharon was talking about, is far and wide. So you did a really good job, my friend. You have made a big difference in a lot of people's life, including mine. And retirement is going to look good on you. Love you.
I love it.
This isn't
Love it.
prepared. I'm Ashley. I'm Helene's daughter.
And I'm Alexa Albrecht.
And I'm not going to cry. I think from a very young age, all I had to do was go to the mall with my mom to know the impact she made on students, because every time we would be at Gardens Day Plaza, be like, oh my God, this is my daughter Ashley, this is my student. Everywhere we would go, we would run into old students, current students, and all of them, she was their favorite teacher. So I grew up knowing very well how appreciated my mom was. And we're so proud of you. And I think we've had many conversations. I've never seen a work ethic like my mom's. She's been working forever. And I think that's probably part of the trepidation of stopping. But as you all know, she'll never stop. And she always is a person who was so passionate about her career. She always wanted to learn more, and everything mattered. And I've had like countless conversations with her where I'm like, okay, but why do you care? Like, it's just your job. Who cares? Like, it's paycheck, it's insurance, it's great. And she cares, and it matters to her. And I think that's the difference, and that's what makes her really special, is that everything mattered, every student mattered, everyone knew that they were heard and seen, and dropped off gifts during the holidays or going to their first communion, all of these things. And I've said it before, but I think you can retire knowing what you did mattered. And you matter, and you continue to matter. You're so much more than just a teacher. You're a mother to us, you're a friend, you're a sister, you're a confidant, you're somebody all these people looked up to. And your impact matters, and you're short selling yourself if you think your impact is limited to this building. So we love you, and we're proud of you, and thank you for being our teacher. And by the way, it's my dad that did the painting of the desk, so just shout out.
I just got done telling Terry McGill it's not about me, and you can say, you know, a wise person said, and I'm not going to name this person, but her initials are Sharon McGill. She just said it like 45 minutes ago. She said, when you're married to a teacher, you kind of become the support staff. And the most common question my wife has been asked for the past 2 months is, are you counting down the days? And she would say no. I've been counting down the days, but that's just me. No, she said no. She said, I've been living each moment of each day. And that's such an amazing attitude to have. There's a lot of things I could say that are absolutely amazing about my wife of 37 years. But I'm going to stick to just school stuff. The reason why I tell my friends, if you're not married to a teacher, you just don't get it. Like, you don't just have your job, you have a job and a half. Helene's going to retire. I'm going to feel like I'm semi-retired. I only have to do my job now. I don't. Wait, did you see what they're throwing out? This would look great in my reading center. Could you go pick this up, fix it up, paint it, and then when you bring it upstairs to my classroom, bring that old couch down, because I'm not going to have space for both of them. I joke around about it, but really what it tells you is what a lot of people have touched on already, is that it's one thing to be married to a teacher. It's another thing to be married to a truly dedicated teacher. I've heard stories about teachers that as they get along in their tenure, that they go on cruise control and they just put it on autopilot and they just mail it in and they just, yeah, we do like we've done the last 10 years. I've heard about that. I haven't seen it. I certainly haven't seen it in my household. What I've seen is when the school day is over, and it's not over when the kids leave, that's for sure. It just starts the second half of the day of researching, following other teachers, talking to other teachers, looking for new ideas, going to all of these educational websites, I couldn't even name half of them, to look for new ideas to bring into the classroom and to make an impact on kids and to give them something fun and give them a desire to learn. That's amazing. That's really amazing. So as much as I'm looking forward to semi-retiring, I just wanted to say that of all the amazing things that I could list, I think tonight it's appropriate to just point out one thing, and that is, you've been an amazing teacher, and it's been incredible for me to be on that journey with you and to see what you've done and who you've impacted, not just in Oradell and all of the students, but certainly our family. And our daughters just expressed it themselves. I'm just so proud of you. Thank you.
Mrs. Norian?
Well, I think I would just like to speak for my daughter, if any of you remember what she looked like when she was in Miss Albrecht's class. And I think I referred to this when we talked about you being Teacher of the Year and how hard we as class mothers worked to put this together. But if you were to look at this book, you can see all of the things that the events, places that she went with her class. And we put together these books. We put them together, but she really did a lot of the work. She created the ideas. They celebrated, oh, where is this? They celebrated and dressed up for New Year's Eve. In second grade, they thought they were the tops. I have found also Haley, yeah, here I am. I have 5 kids, so, you know, I mix up their names. I call them the dogs' names every once in a while. But I found in Haley's room her Student of the Week, and how you celebrated each one of those students for an entire week, and you involved every single child in the class celebrating every child, so that every kid learned to look for the good in their classmates. It blows you away, the things, how much they mean later on. And, you know, I'm proud that I got to be the special person for that special person day that you had. But please, if anybody wants to take a look at this, you'll see a classroom of students where there are some excellent teachers now that were part of that class. My daughter, who is a doctor, and a number of other people who have done amazing things because she believed in them. You've made an impact. Thank you. And by the way, I think I have your Christmas card from every single year. I've watched you all grow up as well.
Anyone else? Mr. Duthie beat me to something I was going to say. I know when I've given the 6th grade speech, one of the questions I always ask is, who started the spring fling? To see if the kids know. And it was always Mrs. Albrecht and Mr. Kostouris. And now it's like a nightclub. But back then they ate at the lunch tables and did the chicken dance, I was told. So we can thank Ms. Albrecht for our spring fling. I know you've mentioned that no one's going to remember you, but I've said this before in prior meetings, and it's not just for you and Mr. McGill, but all the teachers here. I think when people look back on their lives, the teachers I remember, I think, are their elementary school teachers. High school teachers have some impact, yes, but the elementary school teachers are the people, I think, that people look back in their lives and really remember and really affected them. And I've said before, we're so lucky in Oradell for the teachers we have. Everyone here spoke about your love of learning. And many people don't know this, but before, you know, Teachers College was so prevalent, Mrs. Albrecht would go into the city in the summer. She wasn't paid because she wanted to learn it. And she would go in the summer, and she was one of our first people, I think, doing Teachers College. So that was, you know, amazing. I know you're not sure about retiring, but the next few months are going to be amazing with your daughter's wedding. But
I'm out either way.
that's all right. We only want her. No. But I know you say you're not going to do it with your time, but have you ever heard the saying, only boring people get bored? And you are not boring. You'll be doing pickleball and everything else you mentioned, but you're still going to be learning and teaching, but just in different ways. It'll never leave you, and you will not be bored. And you have all your friends that have retired, so I wanted to wish you happy retirement, long and healthy life.
It has been really hard to retire. Nobody ever tells you that. I said it's like menopause. Nobody really tells you what it's really like. It's the same kind of thing. It's kind of the same. And so I've basically been talking to my retired friends this week because I was 2 weeks. And I was thinking maybe that's why you kind of avoided me this week, because I was crying so much last week that she probably was afraid I was going to say I'm not doing it.
I have written something to Mr. McGill and Mrs. Albrecht, which is why I chose not to speak tonight. But Mrs. Albrecht seems to think that I want to get rid of all the old teachers. And the fact is, actually, no. Because the fact is, I believe what Erin believes, that as much as we talk about teachers impacting kids, this school is only going to be as good as our veteran teachers impacting our new teachers. So I can look out right now between Gina and Christy and Mia and Rochelle and Danielle and Maria. Terry and Helene have mentored every single one of them. So how you could ever think that you're not still going to be here because you're in them. And the truth is, in 6 months, Mrs. Hawley's not going to give you an option about subbing. So I know. And the reason I want that is not because we are in desperate need of subs. It's because this profession is in desperate need of the professionals that you are. The fact that Terry McGill, yeah, you talked about him teaching 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and 6th grade. He's been a pre-K aide this month because Terry McGill says, what do you need from me that's going to help our community? Because I'm going to do it. And you, I keep thinking of one thing, and I'm going to challenge Addison and Natalie and Alexa and Ashley. I want you to come up with a new Instagram handle for her, because you're not just LA and 6A. You're bigger than that. You've made a difference on these people in this community, and I want you to continue to do that. Okay?
Yeah.
So stop thinking that we all want you to go. Okay, the business administrator might be a little
It's just the money. I just meant the money. Just about the money.
It's my job.
Go ahead. So, as I started to say, none of my friends really tell you what it feels like, and I use the word irrelevant. And that's what I said. It seems like this is what I know. This is what I love. I love teaching. I think that the hardest thing this last 2 months, which I've said to one of my friends, was that because I'm retiring, I don't have to do the things that I don't like, which is lesson plans and SGOs and all the crummy paperwork, and I got to just be a teacher. And it was probably the hardest thing, was being put in a classroom these 2 months, because that's the part that I love. So just being a teacher, just a teacher, it's, anybody knows, if you've been a teacher, that's the best part. I've been teaching, I think this is my actual 40th year, truthfully. I took a year off, so my 39th, but not in Oradell. So I started off teaching 6th grade. I've taught 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. So I started off as a 7th and 8th grade teacher. And I was thinking about, well, Amelia, I'm going to say something that I think is actually very funny. Amelia's the one who's taking over for me. I said to Amelia one day, I said, could you Xerox blah, blah, blah? And she looked at me and she said, is that laminating? And I told my girls, and my daughters were like, well, Mom, we've lived with you our whole life. We know what Xeroxing means. So I said, well, I didn't say mimeographing, because that's how long I've been teaching, when we would mimeograph. And I was thinking about equipment that comes, if anybody's ever on Facebook and you see this equipment that people go, do you know what this is? I always know what it is. I'm like, yep, overhead projector, opaque projector, millimeter film, I know it all. So I was just thinking about all the changes that we've had all these years. And I think that I'm actually so grateful, and I said this to Megan last year or the year before, I was actually so grateful that I taught during COVID. I said, wow, look at that. Like, I'm going to be able to say one day, there was a pandemic, and I taught through a pandemic. And I learned things that I had, without Gina Strauss, I didn't even know Google Classroom. I used to say, Gina, could you do me a favor? Because she was across the hall from me, and Gina knows everything, if anybody doesn't know that. Gina, you saved my life. Gina was amazing because I would just literally take a kid, have them go across the hall, right? You girls know this is true. You girls know this is true. Ask Ms. Strauss if she could just put up a Google Classroom for me. Just, put it in. And then there I was, and I was like, okay, I'm on my own now. And I just Googled everything to learn how to do everything myself. Or I would call Gina, and she would FaceTime with me and said, okay, push that button, push this button, right, Jay? We would FaceTime each other. She would send videos to me, and that's how I learned. And I was like, this is really cool. I love learning. I love to learn. So, I want to thank my sisters for being here. And by the way, guys, could you raise who you are so you could see those? 3 of my sisters are here. And my daughters, who I adore, Ashley and Alexa, who everybody's heard about your whole lives. And Tom, which will be my son-in-law on June 17th. Thank you for coming. And I know you have to get to work, and you're probably like, stop talking. My amazing friends, colleagues that have been, Erin, I can't even believe you came, and Scott, I don't want to name everybody because Terry and Sharon and Eleanor, and I am, Gina, you're pregnant. I really wish water broke right here. It would be so cool. My mom's, Megan are coming back. The girls, Mrs. Picnic, girls, I am beyond excited that you are here. Natalie and Addison, Ms. Viscardi, I am so grateful. It means so much to me. And I just want to say, and if I forgot somebody, Jen, it's just because I can't see you at this moment, Melissa. I just want to say thank you. Know how much I love you, how much you've impacted my life. And the moms, yes, and my new parents back there, who gave me beautiful flowers today. Thank you so much, Old Cars parents. Thank you so much, my administration, who's been supportive of me, and I appreciate that. And thank you so much. And I will be subbing, I'm sure, but probably not this year.
So we're going to break before we continue the rest of our meeting, so you don't have to stay for it. But we do want to take pictures of both Mr. McGill, and we want to take pictures with the families, so let's do that.
There's nothing wrong with this.
That's right. It's you. Okay, good. You go.
Okay, board, let's go.
Oh, just see it. Thank you. Take care. Hey, Leslie. Mom, how are you? Thank you.
Megan, if you'd like some lessons,
Oh, please, Chucky.
Haley could probably teach you.
Okay. Now our true fans are left. Yeah, even our principal's left. Okay. So before we go to our
You gotta
test,
fix that door. Oh,
Before-
all the glass is coming out.
before we go to our test presentation, I wanted to, I know Jeremy, you weren't here the last meeting, but we are approving the OEA contract this evening. It was voted on by the union and passed. So I wanted to just say on behalf of Mr. Darian and myself, wanted to thank Mr. McGill, which I said to him earlier, Mrs. Kennedy and Mr. Butcher, and then also our Personnel Committee for I think, a smooth experience, right, Mr. Butcher?
Yeah, I was gonna say that later, but yeah, it was a wonderful, pleasant experience, which doesn't always happen, so hopefully it stays this way.
Yeah, so wanted to thank those two also, and Mr. Darian wanted to express the same, so that is all I have. So moving to the superintendent's report.
I feel like I'm supposed to say something about the lateness, but we're going to go through our district testing presentation. While I would have loved to postpone this presentation, we by law have to present it within 60 days of receipt of the test scores. So today what we will be reviewing is the administration of the NJSLA in English Language Arts in grades 3 through 6, the NJSLA in Mathematics in grades 3 through 6, the NJSLA in Science in grade 5, and the Access for English Language Learners. While it does say the dynamic learning maps testing there, we do not have any students at Oradell Public School who do not take the NJSLA and take dynamic learning maps instead. We do have a few students that are out of district, but the number is so small we wouldn't be able to share those results. So just to remind you a little bit about the format of the NJSLA, because we're always questioning how much time do we spend on testing. So I think it's really important to look at that. It's really not as much time as it once was. When Park first started, the testing, on top of being twice a year, was 7 days. This is much longer. We do, as a district, make a deliberate decision to break up units. So when it says 2 units of English Language Arts, we do that over 2 days. There are some districts that do that over 1 day. There is no requirement, but we just feel that for our students' stamina, then we add a variable that we can't control for, so we find this is a better approach. So as a reminder, the NJSLA in Language Arts and in Mathematics is assessed on a 5-point scale. So levels 1 and 2 pretty much mean you're not doing it. Okay, you are not meeting the expectation. Levels 4 and 5 translate into meeting or exceeding the expectation. I don't truly love this level 3 category. Approaching the expectation means that if I gave it to you on another day, you might have passed. You're that close. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about those level 3s. Now, in the science test, they actually use a different grading scale. And I wish they would take that grading scale and bring it to the language arts and math test, because it makes a lot more sense to me. It is below proficiency, near proficiency, proficient, and advanced proficiency. It takes out that level 3. There are certain statistics by law that we are required to share publicly and also post publicly on our website. One of them is participation rates. So you will see here that we had almost 100% of our students who were eligible to test actually test. That is different from when Park first started, and we did have parents opting out from state testing. In this case, we had one student opt out in 5th grade math and science, and we see this every year. It's typically a student who missed testing, came back, and the parent had to make the decision of, do I want my child to miss more school for the makeup testing? And very often, if the parent's confident with their academic performance, they choose to skip testing. So this very big chart is the meat of the data. And we talk all the time that we expect ourselves to be better than the state and that the state isn't a good comparison. However, I believe that the state's a good constant, because if the state scores lower on a test, it tells us that was a harder test in one grade versus another grade. So right here, you're going to see the English language arts percentages. And what you really want to be looking at is these two columns all the way at the end. So this tells us that in 3rd grade, in the state, 42.4% of students pass the English language arts. At Oradell Public School, 73.6. Now, the reason I say that the state is an important factor to consider is you're going to see that that number in the state is lower in 3rd grade than it is in 4th, 5th, and 6th. So while I'm concerned that our 3rd grade number is lower, I also know that it's in relation to the state, and my instinct from past testing is when the Bergen County I-scores are presented, we will see the same trends. The slope of the data is typically consistent for the state. Then you're going to see the state I group be a little bit higher, and then the Bergen County I group will be a little higher, and then we'll look at where do we fall in that. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to just look at that. And again, the statistic that I'm really interested in right now, and Mrs. Brancato and I have been talking a lot about, is these level 3s. And how do we move these level 3s over? I actually believe we're doing a good job with the 1s and the 2s, getting them to 3, but how do we move those 3s to 4s? So when we move over to mathematics, this is the data for Oradell Public School and for the state. Again, going to those last two columns, on the right, the farthest column tells us how many students in the state pass. So in 3rd grade, on the mathematics assessment, 45.4% of students passed. And at Oradell Public School, 87.2% of students. But to talk about that state thing again, if we go back to language arts, 3rd grade is the lowest passing percentage in the state in language arts, but when we go to math, it's the highest. So that tells us a little something about the test itself as well. I look at this, when I first saw the test scores, the one score that truly popped out to me was that 65.7 in 6th grade math. That seems really low. And as I've been watching other district performance reports and looking at this state number, that was a really hard test. And so we're going to have to see what that Bergen County cohort did as well on that test. I was watching a local J district do their percentages, and I started to feel better about that 65.7 because it was higher than theirs. I needed that day. So, and then we look at our 5th grade test, and again, we have that state variable there to say that only 1/4 of students in the state of New Jersey are passing the 5th grade science test. Now, our passing rate is actually a little bit higher than previous years, but we really need to understand this test more. I have continually said that, and when you look at some later slides about language arts performance in 5th grade and science performance in 5th grade, I truly believe this is a language arts test, that you have to be able to read it and figure out what it's asking more than it's a science test. And I think the state has some work to do with trying to make this truly a science test. We are required to share subgroup analysis, and the requirement is that we share the subgroups that we are evaluated on for federal funds. So we cannot share subgroups, though, if we have less than 10 students in the subgroup. Okay, so you'll notice that I didn't break out ELL scores by grade level. We don't have a grade level that has 10 students who are English language learners. So the best we could do is group it together and give you the total number for the school for English language learners. Again, what I look at when I look at data like this is I'm looking for how does the orange bar, what's the ratio between orange and blue across levels, and does that stay the same? So when I look at this data, the area that I want to dig more in and really look at is our 6th grade math, because you're seeing a very similar discrepancy between all students and students with an IEP in 3rd grade, in 4th grade, in 5th grade. But then we get to 6th grade and it's a much more disparate number. We also are required to look at that data from a race and ethnicity perspective. We didn't see huge trends in this data. And we're not required to look at gender. I just find gender interesting to look at, because if our curriculum is truly meeting needs, we shouldn't see huge trends. And if you look at the total number here, we don't see huge differences. The data. Now that's going to be a little different when we look at language arts data. So let's get to that language arts data. This slide again shows us how all students compare to students with an IEP and English language learners, where once again, we cannot look at English language learners by grade level. I was really happy here, and one of the things that we're going to be looking at, I think it's probably cohort-based, knowing who our 4th grade special education students are and what their needs are, but their performance is quite high compared to other grade level special ed performance compared to the general population. We get to race and ethnicity. And then we get to that part about gender again. And as you know, language arts is a passion of mine. And I was very happy a few years ago to see very little discrepancy between boy and girl performance in language arts. And I'm seeing an increase in a difference in 4th and 5th grade language arts. There are a couple things that could be at the root there. It could be that boys were less interested and didn't read as much during COVID. It really could also be book choice. That's why choice of text is so important, because that's what keeps, we always say if you throw Stregonona at a boy, they might not be as interested as they might be about a nonfiction text, a fantasy. So are we ensuring that our students have choice of text? That's the #1 hallmark of a workshop approach towards teaching language arts. When we get back to this total, we don't see as much of the discrepancy, but the 4 and 5 stood out to me a little bit. And then we get to our science scores. Now, in science, we had to group our current and former ELLs because we wouldn't be able to share any data about English language learners on this. Let's get to my...
What do you mean by current and former?
So you're still listed as an ELL student if you have tested out of the ELL program. So say you tested out in 4th grade and it's now 6th grade, you're less than 2 years out, correct, Mrs. Brancato, 2 years? So you are still listed as a former ELL student in the student management system.
And that's because we have less than 10 kids in 5th grade?
Correct. Correct. I think we're lucky if we have 2 in 5th grade last year. But because so many of our students tested out in 2nd or 3rd grade, their number was still in there. So then, and we lose a subgroup when we look at ethnicity and race because our multiple subgroup, we no longer have 10 students because we're only looking at the 5th grade data. So that's why multiple subgroups isn't there anymore. And this was the next slide is where my gut instinct says this is a language arts test, because before we saw that in language arts by gender, our girls in 5th grade outperformed our boys. Now we get to science, and our girls once again outperform our boys. So that is a piece that says to me that this test has a lot to do with reading, and it's something we have to look at how we're teaching and what do we need to do better in that area. I'm going to switch for a quick minute over to the Access. As a reminder, the Access is the English language learning test that we give to our English language learners. I presented this data last year talking about the different proficiency levels and also the different domains. Even if you're not getting English language learning services, you as a parent have chosen, I don't want my student to get ELL. You still have to sit for this test. So it's a weird statistic in a way, because in some ways we're assessing kids that we didn't even touch, but by state law we're mandated to. So this is the number of students assessed at each grade level and their average proficiency score, and I'll review how we get to that average proficiency score in a moment. This 2nd through 6th number is one of the biggest we've seen here. That number is usually much lower. That was less students were tested out after the COVID, the true COVID year, as I like to think of it. So students are assessed in 3 different areas, and then the combination of those 3 areas make the subtests. It is typical that anything with speaking is a little bit lower. It is the last skill set. And what we've learned after talking to our ELL teachers is they actually think that we're also not giving our students enough practice with the testing tools. They have to speak into a microphone. They have to, wear headphones. It's a very different testing situation. So we've been talking about what can we do throughout the year to mimic that a little bit. And when we get to notable achievements, listen, I always say that I have a reputation with the staff of never being quite content. And I always think there is room for growth. There is room for growth in everything that we do. However, it is important that we look at data and also find those celebrations. So you can't open up a paper or turn on the news and not hear about lag, that the students are lagging behind academically. Our students aren't. Their mathematics performance was higher than it's been since we changed the format of the test. Okay, and while their language arts performance was slightly lower than the last time we tested as a whole school, I'm talking 2 percentage points lower. So everything that we're hearing out there, and while I credit last year to that, I also truly believe that 2 years ago when we chose to offer a full remote program, when we set up our structures, we taught kids. And so the lag behind that other districts had to really try to catch up, we made some specific decisions that I thought benefited our students. Even what we chose to do last year, there were districts that didn't remote instruction last year if you had COVID. They said, learn on your own. We didn't do that. So we've done things throughout the way that didn't always make our lives easier, but I think it created less lag. So when we're seeing things on the news, and I was speaking to a parent at the parent coffee at the beginning of the year, and she said, well, of course kids are behind. And I looked at her and I said, well, Oradell Public School kids academically aren't showing that in all areas right now. The piece, so this shows you the mathematics data, but the piece that I'm most excited about is this part on the bottom. They've told us not to put data together because we haven't given this test in 2 years, so we don't have 3 years of data for them to say, oh, we as a 3rd grade are weak in informational reading, or we as a 4th grade are weak in this, because we only have this one little cohort, so we can't say it's a trend. So I tried to think about what could we do as a comparison. And really the best I could do was the only students that had taken the NJSLA were the current 7th graders, so last year's 6th graders, they took it in 3rd grade. So I said, well, what happens when we look at that group? And again, comparing them to the state, because that's the only constant we have. So when we look at that group in language arts, in 3rd grade, 75% of students passed the NJSLA. As 6th graders, after 2 years of COVID, 86.5% of them passed. But what's cool about that is the state went down. So it's not that the test was just so much easier. No, our kids got better, okay? And then when we look at math, while as 3rd graders, 74.3% of them passed, and only 65.7% of them passed now, look at the relationship to the state. The state had a huge drop. So while we were 19 percentage points higher than the state in 3rd grade, we're 34 percentage points higher in 6th grade. So assuming that the slope of the data is going to show the Bergen County eye in there, we're probably right where we should be. And I have heard this board over the past 10 years show a lot of concern about, are we teaching low? Are we ensuring that all students are moving up? So let's look at the level 5 data. In 3rd grade, 12% of students exceeded the expectation at Oradell Public School in language arts. As 6th graders, 45.9% of them scored a 5 and exceeded the expectations. That means that we're not just trying to get kids to pass this test, we're also pushing them to exceed the expectation. And what we see in math is, while we only grew a little bit in scoring 5s, with 22.8% of the 3rd graders scoring 5s, and then when they grew and they're now 6th graders, well, it's only 23.4%, the state went down. And this 6th grade math test it's a doozy. It's one of the pieces that I was the most excited about, because when I first got here, what I heard all the time was, we don't have enough kids exceeding. That right now is not our issue. Our issue is the 3s. Our intervention programs are doing a really good job with the kids who are far, far behind. We're moving them up. But what Mrs. Brancato and I are talking a lot about is, what are we doing for the cusp kids? You know, when we get Title I money pretty much says it has to go to the neediest kids. That's not our need right now, though. We need to figure out what is the programming that we need for those cusp kids in the middle. And Mrs. Brancato is going to talk a little bit, but one of the things that she will share is, when we did that with a group of kids, we actually saw that it worked. We tracked those kids and they passed. So I'm going to let Mrs. Brancato, because she's the one really who's working with our teachers and on analyzing the data, which we do consistently, and putting programs in place as a result.
Hi, everybody. I hate talking on the microphones. Okay, so what we did was to take a look at our data, right? We looked at our district and school level data for math and ELA, and kind of thought about where all of our students are. We looked individually by grade, we looked at subgroups, we looked at the standards by grade, we looked at the domains, meaning the reading literacy, the reading informational text. We compared, because we have Linkit as our benchmark, we compared to what we were seeing for our end of year benchmark, because that's supposed to be the predictor of how students are doing. We shared all the data with parents and with staff. It was all uploaded into Linkit, so now we can use that when we do some comparisons as well. We use the data point from the NJSLA as a major point for our planning for the summer programming and also for our intervention for the fall. So 2 different areas, I guess. We thought about what are we doing with staff and the data analysis piece, and making sure that we're differentiating for everybody, whether they're scoring a 1 all the way up through a 5. We reflected on the curriculum. As you know, we've rewritten most of our curriculum. There is a working copy that's been shared with teachers in the suggested mode that
If there's something, as we talk more about data, and they're saying, oh, we planned for this, but you know what, we really need to make a shift. The teachers are already putting things in there, tweaking things, and then, if there's a lot of tweaks to it, we will revisit it and board approve it again. A lot of it is on the amount of time that we're spending on different things. Like if students are getting something, we don't need, even though we said we're going to teach it, we don't need to belabor it. Like if they've got it, let's move on and let's look at where they really have the gaps and spend the time there. We had a cohort of teachers, data team, we called it, our math data team over the summer, look at our Linkit data, our NJSLA data, and think about the priority content standards that the state had given out back during the pandemic. And there were recommendations. Yep.
Okay, so priority content standard is what the state has said is the most important standard. Yeah. Because if you're going to have reduced time or if you're worried about lag, you want to know what is being assessed the most, what is the most. Third grade, I feel like one of the grades is fractions, is like huge. It's a priority content standard. That's where you want your staff spending time.
Yeah. So we spent some time, an outside consultant came in and helped us to really understand, because the document is 85 pages long, and it's difficult to really grasp everything that's in there. So we identified what it is that we must be teaching, and if we're seeing that there's some trouble with that, going back to what standards were built upon to be able to make sure that students were mastering. We scheduled for this year data team meetings. Actually, one is happening tomorrow. It's an ELA data team meeting, where we're looking at all of these data points, and we've weighed these data points, right? So that the idea is multiple data points, because a student might have a bad day on one of these tests, right? But because we have multiple that are testing the same sort of thing. What we'll be doing at tomorrow's data meeting and the subsequent ones that happen throughout the year is thinking about how do we support what we're doing in Tier 1, which is everybody. So what are we doing, and how are we tweaking based on the data what we're presenting to all students? And then if we're finding that the students are not understanding something from the older data, right, the benchmark data, and also what we're seeing currently with the students, we make plans for our Tier 2, which is within the classroom, but what are we going to do to support during the independent work time or during our win time, which is the what I need time.
So that's your district goal. The district goal last year was analyzing the data. The district goal this year is what are we doing in our classroom? What are the structures to ensure that that data is actually changing how we teach each day?
So one of the things that we shifted a bit this year is our intervention teachers. Last year we shifted from being like a BSI model, basic skills model, to more of a tiered system. This year we even looked at this schedule of the intervention teachers to, while they are servicing students who are in need of Tier 3 support. So we're looking and seeing, are there students who need back skills, right? Things that happened last year or the year before. And the way we set up that is those students who are needing that are getting that 5 days a week with an intervention teacher. But in order to really help support our classroom teachers to be able to provide additional supports for students in need of Tier 2 or our students who are doing well and we want to enrich, we are incorporating time in their schedule to meet with grade levels as a think partner, to be able to share ideas, strategies. This is what I'm trying. How about we try it this way? And as a follow-up, to push into the classrooms during the teaching time, during the independent work time of reading and in math. And some of that could be, students that we're looking who are our cuspy students, an extra set of eyes on those students to be able to say, you know what, let's try something this way. Let's tweak things a little bit. So that's going to be supports for the teacher in the classroom for those level 3 students. And when we look at Linkit, it's our bubble students in Linkit. So typically they're the same, it's pretty consistent that they're scoring that way on Linkit and on NJSLA. We are continuing with, our what I need with our win period. We've worked on developing these if-then documents because sometimes, it's hard to always be able to identify specifically what to do. But when we have a document like an if-then, if you're seeing this sort of thing happening in reading or in math or in writing, try this. And it's pretty extensive. We've gotten a lot of, the intervention teachers have really been working very diligently on that and continuing to add. I think the whole piece is we've got so many wonderful teachers here with great ideas. We have to continue to collaborate and, share our ideas, which is what's going to happen tomorrow in that data meeting. There'll be a time for teachers to say, okay, when I see this happening with a student, here's what I do. And we're going to gather all of that and then share it across grade levels also. Because sometimes we're big, right? It's hard to always get together and be able to share like that. We also have professional development this year through an outside consultant who's helping us with inquiry and promoting that critical thinking through questioning. Really to broaden student thinking. So what kind of questions can we be asking as teachers to get students asking those questions themselves? So that's kind of our teacher end. What are we doing to support the teachers? This is more of a programming piece, right? So we're continuing to review the NJSLA data as part of data analysis, as I said, to invite students to summer programming in ELA, because right now that's showing where we have been not as high in scores, and in our math and ELA intervention. So this past summer, we did use the NJSLA to invite students to be part of the summer explorations program to focus on reading.
And that's a really important part. It's incredibly frustrating when we don't get state test scores, right? The truth is we did have them. We weren't allowed to share them. We had the individual student test scores in June. So we were able to use that for our summer programming. Those are the kids who, we didn't just look at their NJSLA, we looked at their NJSLA and their Linkit Form C or maybe their reading level, and those are the kids we invited and said, we will give you free tuition this summer, please come to an academic class.
Yeah. We're continuing to use an approach in our upper grades and when they respond in writing to reading, where they restate the question. And that's something that when we think back of the access scores, not only do they have to have the equipment on and speak into a microphone, but they need to answer in a complete sentence. And that's not always the way we speak in conversation. So giving opportunities for students to continue to practice that hopefully will be helpful for our L students. In addition, investigating, so speaking with the L teachers, investigating how can we also have with our younger students, how do we orally have them do those same sort of skills so that it transitions and transfers into their writing. And we thought, we're investigating a lot of different ideas, but one possibility might be during read aloud, where students are talking more and needing to, not just say he, but say the male character's name or something like that, right? To be able to speak more in complete sentences there. And also investigating, so when we look a little bit deeper, vocabulary continues to be, not that it's low, but it is an area that is one of our lower.
Yeah, it's hard when you're pretty high performing. Yeah. There's not this big hole. We go to vocabulary all the time because it's something that we see in our classrooms also. It's not just the test scores. It's that when Mrs. Albrecht's daughter used the word trepidation, it stuck out to me. Are we giving our students enough exposure to high-level vocabulary? We know truthfully that our parents are not reading as much to them at home, which is one of the highest predictors of vocabulary development. So I just attended a workshop on vocabulary last weekend because I think there's some things that we can just do to make it bigger in the community. And I don't know if that's a word of the week in the community flash that we try to use. I don't know yet, but I think we just need to raise the level of it. We have a community that has access to this vocabulary. We're just not using it.
Okay, so we got a lot of stuff going on. As I said before, we're going to continue to offer the WIN period, what I need, and I think the big thing is really helping our teachers to look at that data, give them time to plan with it. So tomorrow is the looking at the data and talking about what they're doing already, providing resources like the if-then document I mentioned before, and then building in some time. So on our professional development day, the teachers will have time to go back to the work that we're doing tomorrow and then do planning based on that. There's actual time for planning intentional lessons for WIN specific to the needs of the individual students. So this is the other thing that Ms. Bozios and I were talking about. Where in our intervention cycle, last year in a short period of time just before the NJSLA, we did pull a group of students who were those bubble students on Linkit, and we did more intentional focus on writing about the reading piece. And that's what we plan to do again, but for a longer period, a longer cycle during our intervention time. Because we did know, when we looked at those particular students, they did show improvement. And so that's what we're going to focus on, like I said, on a larger scale this year. And also offering our, STEAM co-taught lessons in the STEM lab to really promote those critical thinking skills. Thinking about that, going back to science, like that may be what we really need to be doing, and there's really some great things that are happening, plannings that are happening in that lab also, and following up in the classroom. Okay, so this is my favorite, the last two slides are my favorite slides. We had a lot to celebrate, what we talked about before in terms of the scores and really holding our own during a really difficult time in the world, right? But one of the other things that we feel is very important to celebrate is we did build community. So the lower grades, the K1 and 2 grades, and their teachers met and planned to do cheers and to really kind of, not really a pep rally, but like cheers for individual grade levels, right? So it was a surprise to the students and to the teachers in the upper grades. Luckily, we had a beautiful day. We invited them outside at a particular time. There was meeting spots, and they were met with the younger classes holding up their signs, banners, pom-poms, cheering. We have a video also.
It may not work because I didn't test it. I'll be honest. Oh, maybe it will.
I tested it.
Oh. Yeah, well, we didn't test the sound, so good luck.
Oh, okay. This is kindergarten and 3rd grade. And this is my favorite part. Unsolicited, our 3rd graders thanked those kindergartners for doing that.
Now, I find the irony is that, little known fact about Oradell Public School, we have more competitive cheerleading coaches in one spot than I've ever seen. Mrs. Giacob is a competitive cheerleading coach. Miss Hook was a former one. Miss Cataldo was one. Mrs. Lynch was one. So this just played right into their strengths.
Yeah, they all came up with different cheers. They taught the teachers, who then taught the students. And with that, so the banners and the signs that they had given, we had replaced. So when you test, you have to either take down all of your teaching materials or cover them. So it's a bare room, and that's like a terrible place to any day, but especially take a test. So instead of having bare walls, either we use these to cover up those teaching tools or replace. And it was just an exciting time, I thought. And this bringing in...
Before
yes.
you get there, the other piece is, I hope you join me in being incredibly proud of this community all the time. But the fact is, we're like little Oradell. And nobody ever hears about little Oradell. So this is actually this little act that we did. It's something we shared with the entire county at a Bergen County Curriculum Consortium, just to start getting our name out there and be like, hey, little Oradell's doing some things. And really, that's Mrs. Brancato. She has presented multiple times now at the Curriculum Consortium. We're going to make her start wearing OPS spirit wear when she goes there. But...
I did last time, I did, because it was our Spirit Day. And this is our theme, for this year. OPS grows when kindness and wonder are planted. So instead of asking if you have any questions, we're asking if you have any wonderings. What do you wonder after viewing this presentation? Mr. Walsh?
Can you tell me how many students are in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and 6th grades that took this test?
Sure. I'm going to give you an approximate. Is that okay? So there was 125 3rd graders, 100 4th graders, so that's 225. 100 in 6th grade, 108. So let's say 110 to that 225, so that's 335. And so I have one group left, is 5th grade. That's actually Prince Alex's group. That's a pretty big group. Yeah, but he was 5th last year. So it's 335, 435. I'm going to say approximately 460.
How many 6th graders? 100 and something.
Last year's 6th grade was 108, I think.
108. 8.
But I can get the actual, but that's what I'm going to say off memory.
Now, we're going to be taking the test pretty soon.
Well, we took
for next year. before we can do anything with this.
Well,
I'm just looking at these numbers here.
But that's not true. We
Okay.
took a test in the fall. We already took it, okay? We just aren't allowed to share those results. I will have to share those results at a board meeting. We won't take the actual NJSLA until the May. So we have a
Right.
lot of time to do stuff with this
Oh, yeah.
stuff.
Okay. For
But-
this year's students.
Yes, we can't do anything for the 7th graders at Riverdale. So the current 6th graders, that's up to
Does
to
Riverdale
Mr.
know of the students?
So Riverdale actually gets a file from us with everyone's NJSLA score.
Okay.
So they have all the data there. They're also a newly using Linkit district.
So that
they
takes
have
care of
that too.
Riverdale, the
Yes.
sixth grade students that took this.
Yes, they're someone else's concern. I'll deal with the new 3rd graders.
But that's the smallest number out of this whole, well, in language arts,
In passing, you mean?
yeah.
Yes, the math in 6th grade is the lowest number by a lot, frankly.
No, English language arts. 26 kids in the 3rd grade
Oh, okay, 3rd grade. Yes,
failed.
yes.
Okay. I mean, you can talk about level 3, but we didn't make this up. This came from the state, right?
Correct.
And if you look at it, if you really want to look at it, level 4 just made it. There are some students that if 65 passes, I don't know, I haven't been in school.
Well, it's not like that. It's, the state gives a number to it. They decide,
Okay.
for each
Okay.
test, it's actually different.
Whatever that number is. And according to what I'm looking at, 100 students in 4th grade, 16 students failed. And
Yes, if you count the level 3 as failing, correct, 16 students.
in the 5th grade, 108 students, 18 failed.
5th grade is actually bigger than that. That was 6th grade, that was 108. 5th grade is,
What was 5th grade?
the class size in 6th grade is almost
I thought you said
25.
108, but that's 18 students. But what I'm saying is, what are we doing for those students? Because they automatically, they're in the next grade, right? They get passed up to the next grade. So they'll be taking, 3rd grade will be taking 4th grade tests.
That's what
Are we doing anything for them? We know what they got wrong.
Yes, and that's what we did this summer. We took those kids and we gave them summer explorations for free.
Okay.
Because we saw that they were the lowest performing students.
So before they left for the summer?
No, in the last week of June and in July.
Okay.
We got
So-
their test scores and we gave them 4 weeks this summer of instruction.
And did we test them at the end of those 4 weeks to see if they made any headway?
Kind of, because in September, we gave them a test on last year's standards. The state made
Okay.
us do that. So what we're going to see next is, we haven't really had a chance to look at the Start Strong test because we just stopped
So
administering.
the test that was given in September
Is measuring last year's standards.
hasn't been looked at?
We've looked at it, but we haven't completely correlated it yet.
Yeah. We just officially finished the testing period on last Friday.
And we also, though, our first group of intervention, like when we were meeting kids, was based on last year's performance.
Yeah.
So kids we worked with in small group in September was because these kids were on our radar. That's why I'm saying that the lowest scoring kids, I know we're giving interventions to. I'm
Okay.
not sure we're doing level 3. So our neighboring district runs an after-school dismissal academy. It is only for level 3 kids. It's for the cusp kids.
I mean, the more help we can give them.
Yes. Yeah.
And then, and one of the things you said, no, you said it, Megan, was the parents aren't reading to the kids or whatever. So maybe we should give the parents homework.
On the summer classes that we offered, did any parents decline it, or did
Yes.
they all come? So how many did we offer and how many came?
To be honest, the participation was probably a little low. And we
50%? Less?
really, depends on the grade.
Well, overall?
And Sunday, fourth grade?
That, Sunday was entering third and entering fourth.
Okay, so we did 2 different programs this summer. We did summer explorations, which probably had, I'm gonna say maybe a 40%. It's really hard to get a big kid here for an hour during the summer.
I think we had about 40 kids.
But I think some were lower grade. We'd have to look at it.
Yes, it wasn't just the tested grades, right? It was, we offered.
So a lot of kids did not come even though we offered it.
Would we be able to look at the difference in test scores for the ones that took it and some that didn't? Yeah, be interesting.
I mean, you're gonna have other variables there because they might have also been in fall intervention, but we can try to see if we can pull those kids
Yeah.
out as well. As I shared, though, I do want you to remember that some of these level 1 kids aren't here. As I shared in my board update, some of those are out-of-district students. Some of our students were miscoded. And so some of these level 1 kids don't go to Oradell Public School.
So next year they will not be miscoded?
We understand now what, we've literally been doing this wrong for like 6, 7 years, I think. We were coding kids through the school portal. And so when we put an out-of-district student in, say they go to, New Milford, they were in our school data. So the reason we noticed it is we have such an increased number in out-of-district students. It stuck out this year. I was like, well, how do we have this number of third graders? So let's say we have 3 out-of-district students in third grade, and 2 of them are in level 1. That is going to sway this data a little bit. And because this is the data that will be publicly shared, I didn't want to alter this data. So I think it's just better that we keep it this way and we fix it for the future.
Did you say they were out-of-district students?
Correct.
And they're
Correct.
in the third grade?
Yes.
And they're part of the 4.8?
Yes.
Well, all of our out-of-district students have been included.
We should be going after the school, excuse me. We should be going after the school that they're housed in, that they're being taught in.
They're not supposed to be in our numbers. They're going to be corrected next year.
We're going to fix this all moving forward because their test scores should never be on us.
Right.
Are they Oradell students?
They are, but we are not like
We're not the ones
provider of
educating them.
What's it called?
We're not the ones educating them.
But it has a name.
We're the accountable school, right? We are the accountable school because we are the accountable district.
We're not the
Yes,
accountable
the
school.
accountable district.
So what does that mean?
It-
Do they get included in our scores or do they
So
not?
they technically get, as I understand it, in the district
They get-
scores.
So I would normally present school scores, not district scores. They were included in both our school scores and our district scores. That's how we noticed it, because the number was the same. And if you
Right.
have 100 and, let's say, 24 students in third grade, and all of a sudden you get 127 scores, you're like, wait. That's why we called the state. We said, what's going on here? What's wrong? They told us what we need to do differently, and we will do that differently next
But
year.
we've been doing this for 6 years and we just.
It's been a really long time.
So
We just
the-
haven't had students testing.
The students that let's say there used to be 13 students that are out of district.
Yes, there are.
Okay.
Correct.
The places that they're being taught, do they have to give the test to every student that they're in charge of?
Not necessarily. It's actually, so some of those schools do give the NJSLA, but do you remember on the first slide, I said there's another test called the DLM? If the student is so cognitively impaired that they do not believe testing them on the grade level is appropriate, they give them a different test. We don't have anyone in our building that does that. Additionally, if you are a private school, you can actually say, we will not administer the test. So if it's that type of school, the parent has the option to bring them here to test or to say, I'm not testing.
So we're paying them $80,000 each to house our school, to teach our students. and they can just say that they're a DLM, whatever that is.
Well, they have to meet criteria. So
Okay.
remember, if a student's out of district, it's because they can't do third grade material. Their cognitive limitations are better for a different test. That school has to actually do a lot of work to prove why they give the DLM. They're not just allowed to say, hey, we're going to give this kid the DLM. They have to do some work on their part.
So they have to test them then? If they don't?
On the DLM, yes.
No, if they're not?
If they're not, they have to, either they have to test them, or they have to give the parent the option to have them come here and take the test. Some parents are like, sure, we'll bring our kid over for 3 hours, and some parents are like, I
No.
don't care about the test score. Because remember, if a child is out of district, their biggest way to track their progress is their IEP. And did they meet their goals there?
And it might be bad for the student,
Maybe.
taking a test.
Some.
He's not good at tests, so he,
Well, depends on the anxiety and stress
crazy.
it might cause.
Just one question on the extra help that was offered during summer explorations. Have we considered doing that for, I mean, I know we're doing it sort of in interventional capabilities during the school day. Any thought put around after-school help?
Well, that's what when I mentioned before that, like one of our neighboring districts does the after-school program, that is a budgeted thing. So in that case, they have some federal funds they're using. We've started to talk about what can we do. We haven't had great success with participation, but we also haven't tried it in a really long time. When we used to run the NJ Ask After School Academy, people just didn't put their kids in it. But it's something we are going to look at and try to figure out how. We will be running some Title I programs, either before or after school. It's not going to be the cusp, though. And so my focus right now is to figure out, like, what am I going to do for the threes? Because I know the ones and the twos, when we run a Title I program, they're going to be invited to that.
Yeah.
Are there grants?
For high-performing Oradell that has better test scores than the majority of the state, not really.
Well, we're not talking about the high-performing students. We're talking about students that we want to help to become high-performing.
I mean, we can look, I don't know of any offhand. They're federal grants especially are very geared towards either who is your financially needy population. Remember, we get Title I funds because of our number of free and reduced lunch students. We don't have to service those students, but that's why we get them, but we have to say we've looked at them. If they're a high-performing student, they don't get it. They want us to target the most needy.
Mr. Griffin? Yeah, it's good. I wonder, as you put it up there, thank you. I wonder if you guys were going to build a program that was going to help those threes, targeted specifically to the threes, if there would be an amount of money, like, not looking at the limitations of the budget now, but saying, if we were going to build it to be effective, what would it cost? If that's something you could present back to us.
Yeah, I guess we'd have to come up with, we don't have the proven track record of how many sessions the program would need to be to make an impact. So it would be hard, other than saying this would be the cost of running a program 3 days a week after school for 1 hour, which I could do at $50 is what you would, I mean, I know what we would pay teachers, I know what the prep time would be. So I could look at something like that, but I can't say, well, it's going to be 4 cycles, because I don't know how long a cycle would be to make success.
But you could beta, you could find out what a beta would be for us to collect data and determine the effectiveness. The other thing I was wondering about, and I don't know enough about how often it takes place, but it seems like the science here in elementary, it's at 5th grade only, maybe. I don't know if it's always 5th grade or if,
The test?
yeah, the test,
Yes.
right.
We test in the state in 5th grade and 8th grade.
So, and there may be other places that we're getting that science progress, but are there other things that we could consider to look at science progress throughout?
It's actually an important question because the fifth grade test is not fifth grade standards. It's everything you've learned through fifth grade.
Okay.
So, but I have to be honest, before I tackle science, I want to see the Bergen County I scores because I want to see if someone is out there that's getting great results, and I'd like to see what they're doing.
I also wonder on the science scores, specifically the subgroup that was proficiency of ethnicity and race, if there would be a way of us looking at what that compared on the state, and then the I group too, that differentiation of
this one?
the difference, yeah.
Okay.
That seems pretty significant and out of line. So I'd just like to better understand it and see if there's any like mechanisms we can do to affect it.
Important piece with this is to do that, I need to look at the cohort size because that 40%, if it's 11 kids, is a very different metric than if it's 100 kids, truthfully. So maybe when I look at that, and it's actually an interesting thing, is to look at how many students are in the Hispanic or Latino group, how many students are in the Asian group, because when you're only talking with, if it's fifth grade from last year and I'm saying it's like about 120 kids, that number could really have played into this.
How
Last,
many, go ahead.
okay, sorry, last question. I wonder, like these notable achievements are amazing, like, especially this math, this growth is incredible. And I'm sure that the kids get a sense of their scores. My kids aren't old enough to have gone through this yet, so I don't really know how it works. But I wonder, are the grades celebrating their experience? Or is there something that gives a feedback to the grades about like, hey, you guys did a great job? Or do they just experience these tests as stress moments that they don't have the feedback?
The teachers get that celebration moment. What's hard with students is it's always the next year by the time they come in. I mean, when our teachers look at the data, and I could use third grade as an example, and they didn't get the feel-good moment I was hoping they would get. Third grade did a special event this past year, Fraction Day, and they deliberately did it based on the data from the last test, that they saw fractions were low. And they said, well, if we build up fractions with our community, will that result in higher math test scores? Now, frankly, their math test scores were excellent, so we thought maybe it worked. When we started to dig in more, there's always two versions of a test, and some of the kids had no fraction questions. So I can't even, like, and when I was very honest with the third grade, I said, these are the highest math scores you've ever had, and that is something to celebrate. I can't tell you that Fraction Day was the answer, though.
I love the video, and I think that those kinds of things of celebrating and encouraging, you know, as a community are great. So anything that could help make that happen.
I have a question on the access for ELL subtest results. What did you say about, I know we did this like 3 years ago. We talked about
Well, we did it last year.
Oral, yeah.
That speaking
Oral
is
language is the most difficult.
Speaking is supposedly the lowest scoring group. Now, we don't have the specific data for just speaking.
But those are not our lowest scores, are they?
Well, you don't have just speaking because you have speaking and listening together. So I don't have data like, and I don't go into the access platform that comes out of special services. I would have to see if it gives us just speaking, because speaking when you get oral language is the combination of the two, and listening is always higher. So, I mean, I can look at that though, because I actually wondered, because I know
I think
that
it does. I think there's something that does, because we know that it's the speaking piece of it that is the most difficult for the students.
But your point being that literacy is lower.
I just remember this came up in the past.
Yes.
So we did not take, so this is the first time we took a test in 2 years?
We took the access last year. I did a presentation in the fall.
Just the access and not the NJ?
Correct.
Okay, so that's why I remember asking about it. And
Yeah.
there was something
There was a typo.
mismarked or something. So
this-
then you said again, it's our lowest, but it's not showing up as our lowest. So I didn't know if that was an issue from the last time, but it does say listening and speaking.
Yes, and so I think if we pull out the sub data, which we can ask Dr. Roth to help us with, because this is one platform I don't go into. I think this speaking is the lowest based on conversations with the ELL. The listening brought it up. because it's the 50% speaking, 50% listening. And last year there was a typo because it didn't say speaking here, and I remembered to fix it.
Yeah, I was going to also ask the same thing Jeremy did about the breakdown by subgroup for science. There does seem
Yeah.
something very
It
skewed
does,
there. And I know
yeah.
you talk about numbers, but that's
No,
not it.
No, I agree, and it doesn't mirror the language arts, which the gender mirrored the language arts, so it made
there's
sense to
something
me.
wrong.
Okay, well, first thing I'm going to do is pull the data again and make sure it's accurate, and then we'll look at it.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Can you shut that off, please? And that concludes my report.
Mr. Marmara, Business Administrator's report.
No report.
Moving to minutes, review of October 12th. Any questions or comments, please email Mr. Marmara. Approval of September 21st meetings. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve September 21st.
Second by Mrs. Norian. Any questions? Call the question.
Ms. Acosta? Mrs. Negum?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian? Yes. Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes. Buildings and grounds. Mr. Walsh, would you take B1?
I'd like to present B1.
I'll second it.
Second by Mrs. Norian. Any questions? Call the question.
Mrs. Acosta? Mrs. Negum?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes. Curriculum, Mrs. Norian.
Yes, I'd like to present item C1.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? Call the question.
Mrs. Acosta? Mrs. Negum?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes. Finance, Mrs. Shapiro.
I don't have a report. I'd like to take a moment to highlight item D8 to thank the PTA for the mini grant for the mobile weather program. I think it used to be John Marshall. Is it still? That is so cool. I've always wanted to come to that. So thank you so much to bring that wonderful experience to the kids. And D9 is the ratification of the contract. So with that, I would like to make a motion to approve items D1 through D9.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? Call the question.
Mrs. Acosta? Yes. Mrs. Negum?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes. Delegate report, Mr. Walsh.
I have no report except that we just came back, those members that were able just came back from workshop. Members and the administration just came back from workshop, and I grabbed a bag for everybody that couldn't attend. So if you don't use it for school board stuff, you can use it for ShopRite or
Thank you.
what do you call it?
A
But
good bag.
Thank you.
that's it.
John's always
Thank you.
thinking of the whole board.
Personnel, Mrs. Walker's on here. Mrs. Norian, would you take that?
Yes, I'd like to present item F1 through F3.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Call the question.
Mrs. Acosta? Mrs. Negum?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes. Policy, Mrs. Negum.
Nothing new to report?
Public Relations and COVID Task Force, Mr. Griffin.
Nothing new to report.
Open to the public. Why not talk again? Why not?
Why not for a third time? No, I just want to thank the board for ratifying the contract. The OEA, as was mentioned, is overwhelmingly very pleased with it. And we're looking forward to eventually revisiting in 3 years, and hopefully it goes as smoothly as this past one. So I can't picture why not. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Same to you. You want to say anything else? Okay. Old or new business? We still owe, some of us still owe Megan money for ice cream from the beginning of the year, so get it in. I'm one of them. Any other old or new business?
Do we need a closed session?
I
I
don't.
think so.
No.
So I move to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.